आप एवं नीति अनुसंधान संस्थान नई दिल्ली extend my warmest welcome to you all at IMPRI Web Policy Learning. Today marks the 11th and the final day of the Young Women Leaders in Public Policy Fellowship, Cohort 2.0, with the theme Getting Foothold in Politics, Governance and Gainful Employment Agenda Lens. This is an online national winter school program, a 4-month online immersive introductory leadership certificate training fellowship program spanning from January to April 2025. This program is organized by IMPRI, Gender Impact Study Center. The chair for this program is Professor Vibhuti Patel, visiting distinguished professor at IMPRI and a renowned advocate for gender equality and women's empowerment, while the co-chair is Professor M. Indira, former professor of economics at the Department of Studies in Economics and Cooperation, University of Mysore. We are especially privileged to welcome Professor Lakshmi Lingam ji today, Chair Professor at the School of Public Health, D.Y. Patel University, Navi Mumbai, as our esteemed speaker. The panel of conveners for this program comprises Dr. Simi Mehta ji, Dr. Arjun Kumar ji, Professor Gumadishri Devi ji, Advocate Dr. Shalu Nigam ji. Before we begin, here are a few housekeeping announcements. Please join the meeting on time. There will be a Q&A session after each presentation. Share your questions on the Q&A box. The questions must not be posted as an anonymous attendee. Ensure that your questions are precise and refrain from making general comments in the questions to save time. Now, without further ado, let us start our program. I would like to invite our chair and co-chair, Professor Vibhuti Patel ji and Professor M. Indira to deliver the opening remarks. Over to you, ma'am.
Yeah. Thank you, Riyaji, for introducing the course and what all the rules and regulations. Today we are on the last day. It's a day 11 of the course. And first of all, I would like to express my heartfelt thanks to Dr. Arjun Kumar, Dr. Simi Mehta, and coordinators, Ms. Priyanka Negi, Ms. Dr. Vaishali Singh, and the team, and my co-chair, Professor M. Indira, who has really, we have really worked as a very good team for this course, and a moderator, Ma'am Priya Rawat, and we welcome Professor Lakshmi Lingam, who will be delivering her valedictory address today. We began on day 1 with a keynote address by Comrade Annie Raja, who gave a very important trajectory of women's getting foothold in politics, governance, and the world of work. And she highlighted several incidences of disabling environment and the hurdles which the women had to face over the last 75 years of India's independence. And in her concluding remark, she said that it is very important to maintain the unity and we have to make an organized effort. Deliberations by Professor Vidyut Mohanty and Comrade Amarjit Kaur in the very first session were also very valuable, their insights and their experiences. And day 2, we had Professor Vidyut Mohanty, who spoke on bursting the bubble of traditional leadership, women's leadership in grassroots politics, where she encapsulated her 50 years of experience of working with the women elected representatives in the Panchayati Raj institutions. And she also gave some of the very best practices and the good examples. And she said that despite very strong misogyny that women in Panchayat face, and this whole thing about weapon of no confidence motion or the Sarpanchpati syndrome, that people are harping on that. But actually women have, wherever they have been supported by women's movement or the social movement, they have performed very well. On day 3, we had Professor Chaitra Redkar, who spoke on the regional dynamics and women's political leadership with a specific focus on Maharashtra. Maharashtra was the first state to come up with the women's policy, the state which was created also due to the with the strong social movement in which women played a leadership role. And Maharashtra also had implemented 33% reservation way back in 1994. Maharashtra was the first state to even implement gender responsive budgeting. But still what we see is that when it comes to upper echelons of power structures such as with state assembly, state council or parliament, you see abysmally low percentage of women, and she says, what is it that that deters women from even progressive states to come forward in a public in the political arena? And that is the mafia power, muscle power, misogyny, and money power. They are the ones which become extremely difficult for women to negotiate. And still we have to now, and she also hoped that now with the passing of Women's Reservation Act in September 2023, scenario may change. And our role is to build the capacity of women who are aspiring to be in the local, to be in the in parliament and legislative assembly. On day 4, we had my presentation on gender gap in workforce participation in Indian economy and some of the mind-boggling issues that has resulted in low work participation of women that they were discussed. Professor Tarana Iyer's lecture was on women's leadership in entrepreneurship, and she gave so many theories of women's entrepreneurship and the male biases in the researches that are happening. And also she said that the question which is repeatedly asked, that does gender affect entrepreneurship, and the neoliberal thinking doesn't accept it. But if we know that our gender analysis has shown that yes, there are traditional norms, there are so many factors, economic, socio-cultural factors, where you see that individual women find it very difficult. There may be some queen bees such as Kiran Majumdar-Shaw and Waga who have succeeded, but large number of women face tremendous hurdles from the financial institutions, from the labor market, from the factor market, from the product market, and backward and forward linkages. That is also a major challenge for women, because markets are socially constructed and markets have the same biases which are existing in the society. But she also said that women from the marginalized sections and women at the bottom of the pyramid, when they get unionized and they form either a federation or cooperative or trade union or SHGs, they are able to succeed. And she gave examples of Self-Employed Women's Association, Jagori Rural and Anandi in Gujarat, and Working Women's Forum and Annapurna. We had on 5th day, we had Professor Shashmita Palo, who spoke about the navigating women's leadership, a tightrope walk that women have to have in the corporate world. And she also started with the theories of women's entry into the corporate world and enterprise, how enterprise is being defined, and the more male-dominated discourses within the corporate governance, and how women find is that the biases that women have to face in terms as a result of which there are glass ceilings and glass cliff and glass lift and sticky floor syndrome, which she deconstructed. And now over to Professor M. Indira for the report of day 6 onwards. Yeah.
Thank you, Vibhuti. Thank you so much. First of all, I would like to express my sincere thanks for involving me in this course, and it is very, very enriching for me. So now I will start from the day 6th. Day 6th, there were 2 presentations. One is by Dr. Nivedita P. Haran, and she's an IAS officer, retired IAS officer, and additional secretary of the government of Kerala. She shared her insights on the topic women's leadership as administrators in state government and central governments. She discussed various events and activities that have happened in the last 2 to 3 years and asked the participants to note what they have felt about each of them. She also emphasized the need to look at our education system that does not help the youngsters to become employment worthy or income earning worthy. She gave examples of pollution levels at Dal Lake and housing schemes and digitization of land records. From her own experience, she gave examples. And she also quoted examples from Kerala to explain how social awareness and proactive people can make difference. So this, I was the second speaker. I spoke about the gender parity in employment, and I started with the conceptual clarification about the gender parity and gender discrimination and gender sensitive policies. So I discussed about the issue of gender discrimination in workplace and highlighted the wage gap between men and women. So the gap between men and women is not entirely due to the differences in education or years of work, but there are certain unexplained factors and which play an important role in attaining the wage gap, in reducing the wage gap. And I also discussed about the importance of policies in facilitating the interaction between households, markets, and institutions to achieve gender equality and economic growth, and emphasize the need for sensitivity in recruitment policies to ensure equal opportunities for both men and women, adhering to legal frameworks like the Equal Remuneration Act, Sexual Harassment at Workplace, like that. So, and she also mentioned about the strategies, mechanisms for implementing gender-sensitive recruitment policies. And however, it is acknowledged that the implementing these policies can be challenging due to societal gender stereotypes, lack of awareness, and equal access to education and training opportunities for women. So day 7 is, on day 7, we had two speakers. One is Professor Sampati Guha and the other one is Professor Manimekkale. So on day, Professor Sampati Guha, who has recently came out with a book on women entrepreneurs, she talked about the limited evidences for women entrepreneurship and women entrepreneurship we have in our country. She also said that we need to have representation of women in the management. She said that despite holding leadership positions in formal despite holding leadership positions in formal institutions like government schools and women principals, etc., still they continue to face the harassment from higher administrative authorities. So even when women are in higher bodies, they have various ways in which disabling environment is created. So that is why she emphasized the importance of collective effort of women in reducing these problems. And the next speaker was Professor Manimekkale. So she spoke on women workers in informal sector and women in global workforce. And she gave data from World Economic Forum and the Gender Parity Index. She also talked about the various limitations of the protective legislation in terms of reaching out to informal sector workers and gig workers. She emphasized on the need for labor standards and human work conditions. And day 8, there were two speakers. Day 8, there was Professor Alka Parikh. She is Director, Center for Pre-Learning. So Professor Alka discussed the current state of agriculture, highlighting its declining contribution to national income, despite a significant workforce still engaged in this sector. She noted that women in agriculture are often invisible in data collection as they are not always counted as agriculture workers. Professor Alka also pointed out that the feminization of agriculture is not a celebration for womanhood, but rather a result of men leaving less profitable agricultural work for women. So she emphasized the need to recognize women as farmers in public policy discussions as they are a significant part of agricultural workforce. The conversation ended with Professor Alka discussing the challenges of accurate data collection due to lack of recent census and potential for women workers to be invisible in various sectors. And whereas other issues are also discussed by Professor Alka. And Professor Alka also pointed out lack of training for women in agriculture, despite their high participation rate, and criticized the excuse that women's lower literacy rates are the reason for this. Alka discussed the challenges faced by women farmers, including lack of mobility, limited access to institutional credit, and societal norms that restrict their participation in profitable agricultural activities. She discussed the work of two NGOs and two NGOs in empowering women farmers in rural areas, and one is Kachmail Vikas Sangatan, and and also the other one is Uttam. So these two organizations have their interventions have helped women in agriculture and to the holistic sustainable agriculture, leading to improved soil health and reduced expenditure. So Prof. Vibhuti echoed these points, emphasized the importance of land rights and the need for policies that promote gender inclusive growth and sustainable livelihoods. So there was discussion on the policy inclusion of women in the policies and gender sensitization. And on the 9th day, Professor Vibhuti discussed the gender parity in politics and governance in India. She highlighting the progress made and the challenges that remain. She notes that India has closed 62.9% of its gender gap, but still faces a 38% gap in areas like in economic participation, education, health, and political empowerment. The Professor Vibhuti also outlines various initiatives and policies aimed at increasing women's representation in politics and governance, including reservation in local government institutions. She emphasizes the importance of women's movement in inspiring political participation and a need for a multi-pronged approach to address barriers to women's involvement in politics and public services. The other speaker was Purnima Chauhan, former Secretary, Government of Himachal Pradesh, and also Director of Himachal Pradesh Institute of Public Administration and a visiting fellow at IMPRI. So Dr. Purnima discussed women's leadership roles in governance and local self-governance bodies. Dr. Purnima expressed challenges in maintaining a gender resource center in training institute and her concerns about the center's existence. She also expressed technical difficulties during the presentation. Dr. Purnima discussed the importance of recognizing gender issues and the impact they have on economies and societies as a whole. Dr. Purnima discussed the importance of institutionalizing gender equality and the need for performance budgeting. She also highlighted the issue of underfunding in vital sectors like health and education. And in the discussion, Dr. Prachi raised concerns about the lack of intersectionality, and also there was a discussion about this intersectionality. The meeting also discussed about other issues like emotional pressures faced by women in professional and personal setting, etc. The panelists also emphasized the importance of changing one's own thinking and being willing to ask for help. So this is a gist of what has happened up till day 9. Thank you.
Vibhuti ma'am, your mic is on mute.
On day 10, we had a massive response. On Zoom alone, we had 101 very, very active, intellectually active participants from several parts of the world. We began with discussing the main theme of the 2025 March 8, Madam Priyanka Neki. She introduced that. After that, I told the history of International Women's Day, the whole glorious, her story of solidarity, sisterhood, and also we also recited the verses of bread and roses. Bread symbolizes right to food, and roses symbolizes the better quality of life. After that, Comrade Amarjit Kaur, she gave a mind-blowing lecture. She was full of energy and she electrified the whole atmosphere. And she began with a story of NFIW and how it was formed and how women in the Indian context, the whole struggle began from 19th century social reform movement, 20th century women freedom fighters, persons like Savitribai Phule and even Aruna Asaf Ali, who founded NFIW. She told about that, and she said that it is very important to focus on the language because language also expresses gender performativity. She gave an example of Subhadra Kaumari Chauhan's Khub Ladi Mardani, wo to Jhansi Wali Rani thi, and she said, why any woman who struggles against injustice is called Mardani. Women women also, and she gave examples of women in the trade union movement who are fighting against the most horrendous form of exploitation. She gave examples of Anganwadi workers, Asha workers, midday meal workers who are just given honorarium for such a backbreaking work, and how collective struggle by NFIW resulted in a reality where when Anganwadi workers were given only 100 rupees as honorarium, now they are getting 6,000 to 10,000 rupees in different states. And now still the struggle is on. So what she said, that whatever we have achieved so far, we have to continuously be alert to preserve it. Otherwise, the vested interest will turn the wheels in a backward direction. And at the same time, wherever we find injustice and inequality and exploitation, we have to collectively fight against it. Individually, when we fight, we face witch hunting. So it is very important to form the organization, strategize, think over the issues, and be politically alert. Ms. Anuja Gulati, she made a very systematic, research-oriented, data-driven presentation on strategies of transformative change for gender inequality, where she profiled 50 years of work of United Nations Population Fund, in which she has given all her best years of her life of nearly 30 years. And she said that how 17 SDG goals, which are now converted into 9 themes, and UNFPA focuses on theme 9, creating women and girl-friendly panchayat. She gave several examples at a grassroots level of working with the Panchayati Raj institutions, creating safe environment of women for women and girls and even sexual minorities. And she also talked about the work of UNFPA with the population first, and how they are changing the thinking and the transformative change that they are bringing in the media, mainstream media, and also dialogue with them. And Ladli Media Award, she told the glorious stories of Ladli Media Award, and nurturing and mentoring of young journalists to be gender sensitive. And she said that every issue, we need to, in every narrative, gender perspective should be integrated. And and she also talked about UNFPA's work of engendering medical education, and their collaboration with Sehat for integrating gender in medical curriculum. She ended her heartwarming talk by emphasizing the urgent need for gender disaggregated data, which are very important for any kind of intervention that we want to have. Thank you. Over to IMPRI.
Heartfelt thanks to Vibhuti ma'am and Indira ma'am for their opening remarks, which thoughtfully summarized everything from day 1 to day 10. We now have the privilege of hearing from our esteemed speaker for today, Professor Lakshmi Lingam ji. She will share her insights on gender equality, challenges and responses, addressing critical issues surrounding gender disparities and strategies needed to advance inclusive policies and social transformation. Over to you, ma'am.
Yeah, good afternoon, and
Good afternoon.
thank you very much for inviting me over to this program and asking me to contribute as a panelist or a teacher. So I think I was supposed to speak from 3 to 3:45, but it's already 3:32. So do I get the 45 minutes from now on, Vibhuti?
Yeah, yes, definitely. Yeah. Yes.
Okay. So I don't know why, but the title got completely blurred. We transmitted the PPT. So this is a session where we're looking at issues of gender equality and what are the challenges to gender equality. Yeah, next slide, please. Okay, so the way we'll carry on this session is one, we will quickly look at the genesis of the concepts of equality and rights. We'll also try and understand ideas of equality and equity. And then what are the challenges to women's leadership? And then how do we understand what is the significance of bringing women into leadership? And what probably we should keep in mind as feminist principles for bringing forward now and also in the future a strong feminist leadership. So at any time, if you have any questions, please do post your questions in the chat box. I can take them up. There's something immediately that you want me to clarify, please let me know. So early modern period, which is not so early, it's about 16th century onwards. Early modern period and the enlightened period, which is the 17th and 18th century, have actually seen the articulation of the concept of natural rights, the discussion around individual liberty, and the possibility of creating a state-like formation that has responsibility for ensuring that people's rights are taken care of. So some of the well-known names, while ideas of equality existed even much prior to this, but the most articulated ways in which these have been come up or have been written about and discussed were by these four people that I put out here. So Thomas Hobbes, whose period is 1588 to 1679, has a book called Leviathan, and he argued that people give up certain rights in exchange for security under a sovereign power. And you should also remember that these were also the periods that were where many parts of the world there were kings and kingdoms, royalty and nobility, and very draconian kinds of feudal systems. Apart from that, ideas of the scientific temper was also still gaining ground, which essentially means that the idea of what is this world all about and how are we organized in this world was largely being explained by using theological teachings or through ideas of religion and scripture, which basically reinforce all kinds of hierarchies and also give very high value and sense of power to individuals who have land and property, and also seen as individuals who are born in with very high pedigree. So obviously then you have a dyad of the ruler, the king, and the priest coming together to keep everybody else silent and not really talk about their rights, but carry on their lives in different kinds of slavery. So ideas of rights, therefore, were actually seen as something that was not acceptable, that was seen as something that was violating the natural way of life, where everybody has to, prostrate and also worship worship not only God, but worship all kinds of representatives of God, right? So in that order, therefore, everybody is quote unquote naturally unequal, right? And then John Locke's work, he advocated for natural rights and ideas of life and liberty and property, these ideas and the possibility of a government, being there to protect rights of people to be able to have their life and liberty and, carry on areas of their interest and be also in a position to generate wealth and retain wealth. Rousseau, Jean-Jacques Rousseau, developed the social contract theory, arguing that legitimate government is based on the general will of the people. Because the concern always is somebody comes in as a leader, somebody comes in as a representative of a state, but very soon these kind of formations go through change, and it's much easier to slip into different kinds of dictatorships where individuals control the lives of everybody else. So Rousseau's idea of social contract theory basically reinforces the fact that the state and people have a contract through which the state and its representatives have an abiding, responsibility to ensure that people's rights are taken care of. And they have their legitimacy by being able to deliver what is good for people and do things for the larger good of everybody else. Immanuel Kant emphasized moral rights and the dignity of individuals laying a foundation for later human rights theories. Next slide, please. All of you can actually spend more time, reading up about these people, and you will find enough resources on the internet to just get a sense of, what perhaps prevailed in those times and how they were, in their own ways, were encouraged to think about individual rights as opposed to communitarian rights, or as opposed to a larger scheme of things where, God, religion, and leaders, religious leaders, and kings and nobility will dictate everybody's lives. And in 20th century, we saw human rights and social entitlements coming up in much bigger ways. So the United Nations was established in 1945 after World War II, and this was itself established in a way to create a kind of global governance structure, so that countries that have hitherto been the colonizers, and newly formed countries, newly independent countries, actually have a level playing field where UN plays the role of trying to balance these powers. Okay, so uh, UN therefore played a crucial role in advancing the notion of human rights and also the notion of women's rights. So in 1948, Universal Declaration of Human Rights was adopted by the UN General Assembly. And when we say General Assembly, it basically has member nations and countries that are considered to be independent and also recognized as independent countries, having their own statehood and also having their own representatives. So the UN General Assembly, which is like our parliament of all the countries, they have accepted the UN Universal Declaration of Human Rights. So although it did not explicitly mention gender equality, the Article 1 of the Human Rights Declaration states that all human beings are born free and equal in dignity and rights. So this served as a foundation for advocating for gender equality as a fundamental human right. So around this time, in fact, India has achieved independence. And because of, you did have many sessions where you were exposed to many aspects of this. The constitution that was written up and, agreed and adopted in 1950s has given women equal rights. And we know that as a country, we were fraught with lots of divisions, lots of ideological differences, and the idea that a citizen should be one who perhaps comes from upper caste, somebody who has the education, and also has the rational understanding about how to choose their leaders, which then means a large majority of the population who do not have landed property, who do not have education, who then by the kind of understanding would not be able to have any kind of citizenship rights. So because our constitution has clearly declared that everybody who is a citizen has equal rights, and that these rights cannot be, undermined, and they cannot be parceled off, or they cannot be placed in a hierarchy, then we do see that that has given us a huge edge compared to many other countries that kept fighting for women's what is known as the suffrage movement. Women were fighting much after India's independence for the right to vote in their countries, right? So racial distinctions, gender distinctions, and ideas of mental abilities, all these were dictating who could be a citizen in many parts of the world. So John Rawls, written a book, A Theory of Justice, in 1971, and he introduced the idea of justice as fairness, and advocating for entitlements that ensure equality of opportunity. Because while we do say that people have rights, there need to be pathways for operationalizing those rights. So we do then talk about rights, and we also talk about entitlements. And Amartya Sen and Martha Nussbaum have taken these ideas much further, and they developed their capabilities approach. arguing that entitlement should be measured by people's ability to lead meaningful lives, not just by resources. So it's not just about providing different kinds of opportunities alone, but to make sure to see that there are possibilities and there is an ecosystem to be able to exercise these rights and also to be able to achieve the outcomes that come of these rights. Okay. So all these came in around, much after our independence. And even within a lot of UN documents, there wasn't really a gender neutral language. There was reference to people always, with the assumption that when you talk about people and population, it automatically then covers everybody else. So only when in one of the UN conferences that they openly declared that women's rights are human rights. That's when it became much more clearer, because all ideas of rights as economic rights, political rights, civil rights, often then do not recognize what are the violation of these rights in the private sphere, because all these are seen as public rights, and this rights exercised in the public domain vis-a-vis the larger community, state and other such institutions. So family as an institution and the intra-family dynamics where women's rights get violated very often, and most countries also have their own legal frameworks that undermine women's right to property, undermines women equal rights, have increasingly come into focus. And that's when the idea that women's rights are human rights was coined. And then, of course, for the longest time, women's movements have been talking about, personal is political. So domestic violence, therefore, cannot be seen as a private matter that exists within a family, but it's actually seen as a rights violation. And women and girls who face violence often then also face many other forms of violations. That is, they're not given access to food and nutrition, they're not given access to healthcare, they're not given access to education, they are not technically trained and do not get market skills. They're married off very early. They face sexual violence. They face domestic abuse. So when all these happen, obviously then all your rights, whether they're your educational rights, your economic rights, your political rights, your cultural rights, everything gets compromised. Okay. So one cannot be placing rights of human beings in a hierarchy and then try to ignore what's really happening to women. So the period of 1975, was the year of, the year International Women's Year, and the decade 1975 to 84 was the International Women's Decade. And around this time, obviously, globally, women's movements were asking the UN to ask for attempt to take stock of what's happening to women in all these countries that have attained independence. So India's own attempt to look at what's going on with women's lives, after we attained independence, after we have put our constitution together, what's really going on with women, and what's the progress the country has made, has brought in the much renowned report called Towards Equality, which has now celebrating its 50th year, right? So that really became the benchmark then to talk about equality and talk about what are all the major barriers to women's equality. So while all of us do use the words equality and equity, I thought I'll just give little more conceptual clarity on these terms, because when we are talking, which we will do a little later, when we talk about women's participation in the political arena, or we are talking about women's leadership, in public policy or in policy making or in politics, there's always this dilemma about equality. That if we are saying we are equal, But we are also saying that there need to be provisions to make sure that, we are able to participate, then that is seen as something that goes against equality. Very often we also have these discussions in the class where if there are seats reserved for women in a bus, many young women say that, if we are fighting equally with men shoulder to shoulder, and we have the ability to do things and we have the merit to do things, then we shouldn't ask for any kind of reservation of seats, whether it's a bus or in politics, right? So the thinking is that when we focus on equality, then we shouldn't be really asking for any special provisions, additional allowances, or what's often referred to as affirmative action. That is seen as something that is seen as counterproductive, or seen as something where we are privileging or essentializing our biology, and not looking at ourselves as individuals irrespective of our bodies and biologies. So I think in order to clarify these kind of dilemmas, it's important for us to understand the concept of equality and also the concept of equity. Okay, so equality refers to the state of being equal in status, rights, and opportunities. Okay, and equality promotes equal treatment and non-discrimination. So when we say equality and that we have to be treated equally, what we're basically saying is that there has to be no discrimination. Okay, zero discrimination, and that we have to be treated equally. However, in order to achieve equality, we also need to look at, is it enough for us to say that everybody is equal and assume and expect that equality will fall in place automatically? Okay, since we know that there have been generational disadvantages in the case, let's say, women, or Dalit people with Dalit backgrounds, or even belonging to a minority community, or being a person from a scheduled tribe background, or what we can also say indigenous background, it's not possible for us to exercise those rights unless there are provisions made for us to reach those goalposts. Okay, so then it's important to bring one more concept called substantive equality. That is there an enabling environment for people to achieve equality? And that enabling environment could be many things. It could be access to education. In the case of education, it could be access to education. It could be special schools for girls. It could be scholarships for girls. It could be giving bicycles to girls. It could be increase the age for women who want to apply for a net or a set, or increase in the given age for possibilities for women to get into employment, which means that in the existing context where there is a gender division of labor and also a cultural system that tends to undermine women's rights to all public resources, women's rights to participate as equal citizens, women do face several disadvantages. And in order to circumvent those disadvantages, you need to provide those kind of possibilities so that there is an enabling environment to achieve equality. So that's then what is called as substantive equality. So it's different from lip service. So if you say equality, equality, and not do anything about it, then that is seen as lip service. But if you come up with a variety of provisions and also a variety of possibilities, then you are attempting to achieve substantive equality. Okay, and therefore we talk about equality of opportunity and equality in outcome. Okay, for example, if there is a kind of reservation, for example, in the case of the SC/ST students, there is a reservation for students to come into institutions through a due process of exam, etc., etc. And when students enter into the academic portals and get into studying, they often find several stumbling blocks. First of all, let's say our medium of instruction is in English, and a lot of literature that's available is English, but we don't really understand what that English is all about. And you find that in your classroom, There are many more students who come from very privileged backgrounds. So the classroom is filled with people who are privileged, and teachers tend to then interact with only the students who are talking, who are responding, and who are able to engage with the teacher one-on-one. Then what happens to these students who probably have language difficulties, who are having problems with dealing with the texts, not being able to spend extra time? Probably they don't have a laptop where they can read soft copies of articles being circulated by the teachers. Then you would find that slowly they will drop out. They will get marginalized in the class and they'll drop out. So you might have 30 students who are admitted, but you might have only 5 students who are graduating. So if that is the kind of dropout you have in your classroom, that institution really should look at what is going wrong. Why are students coming in but not leaving the institution with a degree? So it means there is an equality of opportunity, but there is no equality in outcome. So to achieve equality in outcome, you have to
Have we lost Lakshmi ji? Hello? Am I
Yes,
audible?
ma'am. Yes, ma'am. Ma'am, it seems ma'am has some connection issue. I'll just reconnect with her.
Acha.
Ma'am is trying from another network, so she'll be able to join in a couple of minutes, I think.
No problem.
Vibhuti ma'am, are there any remarks that you'd like to share for
Yeah.
the discussion that
Huh?
are here? Are there
Can
any
we start? Can we start taking presentation? We have quite a few. Hello.
Yes, ma'am.
Are they, can we do that? Because we are really short of time. I have another program at 9 o'clock. So I think we even if we start, no, we will need quite a lot of time. So can we, if somebody is ready, can we take the presentation, start presentation?
Ma'am, Lakshmi ma'am has joined.
Acha, no problem.
Yeah.
Yes. Ma'am, please go
Sorry.
ahead.
One, I'm
No problem.
traveling and I'm in my cousin's place. The other is today there's the final cricket match. So almost all the servers are running overloaded.
Oh my
Okay,
God.
so
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay.
I also would think that many of your participants probably also have not come today.
No,
Can
but because
we,
they
Yeah.
are not cricket buff. They are
Okay.
they're
So
very-
after equality, the next slide is can you just go to the next slide? Okay, so along with equality, we need to also then understand ideas of equity and social justice. So equity is inherently a normative idea. It's a value-based idea. So basically, equity refers to issues of social justice or fairness, and it's a ethical concept which is grounded in principles of distributive justice and human rights. So, for example, equity in health can be and has been widely defined as the absence of socially unjust or unfair health disparities. Since I do a lot of work on health, automatically I put these examples. So in short, the idea of fairness and justice balance key societal goals of equality, equity, liberty, and fraternity. So it means in order to achieve equality, when we say there has to be substantive equality, it means you need to have the medium of equity. So when you do things to remove all forms of injustice and unfairness, that is when you have a possibility of achieving equality. Okay. So equality is a goal and equity is a means to achieve the goal. Okay. So that's the fundamental idea you should understand, and I'll explain it further. So please go to the next slide. So there are two kinds of equity. One is horizontal equity and the other is vertical equity. So when we say horizontal equity, it is like when you are saying everybody has to be treated equally. Okay, so that's a horizontal equity. So whether you're a man, you're a woman, you're a transgender person, you're a gender individual, you're a Dalit, you're a Muslim, you're a person with disabilities, you're elderly, whatever. So that is horizontal needed to be given to men, women, and genderqueer individuals, and access to, for example, in this case, healthcare services as an example. Whereas vertical equity basically means that because our requirements are different, because our demands on the system are different, there needs to be additional support that is provided in order to achieve horizontal equity. Okay. To achieve equality, you need both horizontal equity and vertical equity. So, women and men have different and identical health needs, which have to be addressed through policy prioritization, budgetary allocations, provision of healthcare services, building capacities of staff, etc., which then means actually you have to spend more to achieve equality in the case of gender, right? So that is something that needs to be kept in mind with reference to equality, that we need to not only have equity, but that equity has to be both horizontal and vertical. Yeah, please go to the next slide. Therefore, you see, what do these mean in simple terms? So equality basically assumes that everybody is same. Okay, it says that everybody is equal, and in the eyes of law, everybody is equal. For example, you often hear that. So that is the idea of sameness. And inequality basically refers to things being unequal. Okay, it means if there's a lot of unfairness in society, and there are inequities in societies, that produces inequality. Okay, unfair ways in which we have everything organized in our society, resources organized in our society, that inequity produces inequality. Okay, there is economic inequality, there is social inequality, or there is gender-based inequality. That is because of inequities. Okay, so equity is fairness, and inequity is about unfair or unjust. Okay, please go to the next one. And here we'll see a series of visuals to get you to understand. You must have seen it several times. So idea of equality, if you see on this image on the extreme left, this is typically the idea of equality where everybody is treated equal. So if you look at their stools, they're all of the same height, and therefore standing against this particular fence, if everybody has to see, obviously you will see the short person in that particular thing, you're not able to see. So equity, if you were to reorganize the way those resources are distributed, you will find that the person who is the shortest or youngest is actually able to see along with the others, right? Now, somebody also then says, but what is the reality that we are in? Because there's so much of inequity and also therefore a lot of inequalities in how resources are organized and also resources are allocated. People who also take the justice framework actually then say, in fact, there has to be no fence at all. Okay, why do you even need a fence? When you don't need a fence, then automatically everybody is at the same level. So that's also another visual that circulates, saying equality, equity, and justice orientation to how you think about viewing the world. Next slide, please. This is also a very interesting way of talking about equality. Now, when you look at all these animals, all of them have very different, basic, physical structures. And because of that, they consume food very differently. And you may have heard of the story, the Yusuf's fable of, the fox and the crane, they are friends. And the fox will invite the crane home for supper and provide soup in a bowl like this, and the crane cannot consume. So when the crane invites the fox over for dinner, it provides soup in a jar, and the fox will find itself stuck its head in the jar, right? So it means their abilities, capabilities are different, and therefore they're able to do things differently. So in this case, they are not really able to. All these four animals that are there don't have the same level of, capabilities to be able to manage to consume these so-called equality-based resources. So what would be the alternative? Yeah, next slide, please. Oh my God, I think in transmission, this middle one, if you remove it out of slideshow and just increase the size, can you do that, Priya? Just take that, it's gone into this slideshow. No. Yeah, take it out of the PowerPoint.
Make it
Take it out
working
of
mode.
slideshow. And then just
make
increase
it,
that side of that second slide. Are you able to see? Or it's okay. We'll just go to the next and we'll share the PPT with you so you'll be able to look at it. Yeah, the next one, when I copy pasted, okay, this fine. So that actually, you can keep it there so people can struggle a little bit to look at what I'm saying, the earlier one. No, the next one, you removed it all. This one. So here you actually notice that, crane is kept in a cage and the fox are getting their food in a bowl, and the monkeys don't really get anything. They're left to their own devices. So this is called a protectionist model of equality. And we often find that whenever women face any kind of sexual harassment or violence, women are told, why do you come into the public place? Stay home. And families also tell them, you should be at home and not go out. And that's a socialist, that's a protectionist understanding. And that also won't work. So the best actually is, maybe the third slide is missing, is to actually provide different ways of consuming resources. So equity basically provides for that opportunity. Okay, so please go to the next slide. So this is the corrective model of equality, where you do have everyone getting the way they should. And that's the justice-oriented way of being able to provide access to resources. Next slide, please. And this is something that we face, and all of you who are being trained to be leaders will find that you are told that you should be able to compete equally with men, right? Now you look at this particular thing, you must have seen it earlier also. They all have the same starting line. They're on the same starting line, but definitely women have many more obstacles in front of them. All these obstacles are linked to all the domestic roles that they are supposed to perform. Apart from that, they also are wearing heels. So there's no real way in which they can make it equally in the competitive meritocracy corporate world. Okay. So is this how we would like women to be part of the mainstream, or also compete with men in every avenue of life? Yeah. Next slide, please. Okay, so in summary, not in summary for this presentation, but in summary to look at ideas of equality and equity, what we are saying is equality refers to the idea of treating all individuals or groups in the same manner, providing them with equal opportunities, resources, and rights. It implies that everyone should receive the same treatment without discrimination or favoritism, regardless of their differences. And equity, on the other hand, is about recognizing and addressing the diverse needs and circumstances of individuals and groups to ensure fairness and justice. So it basically acknowledges that some individuals or communities may need additional support or resources. And we know that these individuals also are facing generational disadvantages. So if generationally people are facing disadvantages, it cannot be reversed in 1 decade. It cannot be reversed in 5 decades. It does take time. Okay. So while equality emphasizes treating everyone the same, equity recognizes that treating everyone equally may not address existing disparities and challenges. So equity seeks to ensure fairness by acknowledging and addressing the diverse needs and circumstances of individuals and groups, aiming for equal outcomes rather than just equal treatment. Okay, so the outcomes are as important as being treated equally or gaining access to resources equally. Yeah, next slide. So, however, as I mentioned in the beginning, there are several dilemmas when it comes to equality and the equity discourse. Often, as I said, people think that if you subscribe to the idea of meritocracy, then you should not be crying foul at the rules of the game. They say, look, you have come into the field of education. You want to take up employment. Now, don't keep saying that you're a woman. Don't keep saying that you have domestic responsibilities. Don't say that you have a child. Don't tell us that your mother-in-law or father-in-law is unwell. Don't tell us that you are having menstruation and you are having menstrual cramps. Don't say all that. You have to be doing things exactly the way men are doing, and they don't complain, so you should not complain. So that creates often a lot of dilemma in women who are in the, public domain, who are in various professions, as to how do they deal with this. Okay, it's seen as purely their personal problem that they have to take care of this. And for the longest time, people like Vibhuti and I have fought for public policies that recognize social reproduction, public policies that recognize care work, public policies that recognize unpaid labor of women. And we also talk about how gender division of labor should change. Women should not be burdened with this enormous responsibilities at home, and things should change, and state should continue to provide support to everybody, men and women. And at this point, it has to provide support to women because they are responsible for all this. Okay. So the dilemma generally is around essentialism and intersectionality. So affirmative action policies often assume that all women share the same challenges. However, caste, class, race, ethnicity, disability, and sexuality create intersecting forms of oppression. So often, even when there were discussions about reservations for women in the parliament, the greatest opposition to that was from the OBC political leaders who said, it's going to become elite women and upper caste women who are going to take away these reservation positions. And what will happen to also, they did ask for reservation within reservation. Okay. And for the longest time, it was hanging in. Okay. So there is this concern that because women are not a homogeneous group, then when you talk about affirmative action, the question is who is gaining that benefits? And there's backlash also, and also tokenism. So affirmative action can provoke backlash with claims that women are being given unearned privileges, in the sense they don't need these and they are demanding this. They better be home. And very often we also attribute a lot of violence against women in public spaces as a pushback from men to tell women that they have to be at home, and they better know that their place is inside the home and not in the public domain. So when women do not take up jobs somewhere within the families, the concern also is about women's safety in public spaces, women's safety at the workplaces. So backlash is imminent. And there's also a lot of tokenism that's possible. That is, you would have one woman in an all-male board, and everything else happens typically like the way men would carry it forward. Because they need to have, a representative token woman and as a director, or a woman member in a particular, or you will sometimes also see that there's an all-male panel speaking about women's empowerment. There did happen such events, and people asked, where are the women on your panel? So you do have the typical male savior kind of syndrome when it comes to women's empowerment happening pretty often. But tokenism is something that does happen, and often people will say, oh yeah, we have women here, let them speak first, and we are going to give equal rights for women to talk. But ultimately, often the decisions are not based on what the woman is saying at all. Okay. So affirmative action is necessary but complex tool in achieving gender equality. So addressing these dilemmas requires continuous assessment, policy flexibility, and intersectional approaches. So while we are talking about gender equality now, increasingly we are also talking about having a intersectional lens, so that we don't club all women at the same level, and make sure that the ones that really need the advantage are gaining that kind of advantage. And there is a true idea of fairness and social justice. Next slide, please. So I actually wanted to ask you all, what is women's leadership? What are we can say our thoughts, but I also wanted to know what are your thoughts? So I have some questions here. Is it women leaders and in leadership positions within an all-male ecosystem? Is that what we think should be the way women should be participating to achieve gender equality in the political arena or in public policy making? Then what is then feminist leadership, and what could be the principles that one could abide by and aspire to hold to? So at least if some people can talk about what do they think, what would be their response to these questions, then I have one last slide and then I'll wind up. No, please don't.
Participants, you can unmute and speak. Yeah. You can unmute and speak. Yeah. Priyanka ji, Urvi Sharma, please go ahead.
Good evening, ma'am. This almost, when you were talking about having female leaders who can make more equitable opportunities for everybody, even male leaders, I was reminded of this one particular instance when the issue of menstruation was discussed in Parliament, and there was a lot of controversy because Smriti Irani said that menstruating woman is not handicapped. So I think, to me, a feminist leader would be one who is able to understand that even though we want equality and equitable opportunities, it is important to acknowledge that biologically we are not the same. The kind of the pain or the kind of, physical discomfort that women are undergoing is there. It also reminds me of this very beautiful TED talk, which is also converted into a book. It's called "We Should All Be Feminists" by Chimamanda Adichie, and she talks about how, whenever she would go for a talk, people would not take her seriously if she would wear a red lip color, because they thought in order to be taken seriously, women should also be dressing up like men. I think for me, it's very important for women leaders or for feminist leaders. Even a male leader can be feminist if he's willing to be an ally, if he's willing to listen and understand the real problems faced by women. So I think a feminist leader would be somebody who is able to understand the equitable opportunities that we need for everybody, which would, because let's be truthful, even though we are striving for gender equality, that's the dream, we haven't reached there. So even though we talk about how men and women are equal, we are essentially living in a world where even though your parents might be trying to create equitable opportunities for you, but the structures are structured in a way that you can never be equitable as a woman. Even I mean, of course, your caste, your race, your class would play a certain role. So that acknowledging these intersectional differences as a leader would count as feminist leadership. I think. Yes, ma'am.
Thank you, Ruchi.
Yeah,
Dr.
thank you.
Prachis. Yes, Dr. Prachis
Hello.
Sarda, you can
Hi,
unmute. Yeah.
good evening, ma'am. Very nice to see you again after test, Professor Lakshmi Lingam. Very happy to see you here. I would just like to say that when I think about leadership, what I feel is it is more of a hierarchical, top-down approach. Whereas I feel that when we talk about feminist leadership, the definition of leadership has to sort of change instead of making women fit into the definition of current leadership. If I'm able to, make myself clear, because I feel that the current definition and the structure of leadership itself is very patriarchal. And I think we could sort of take uh, uh, some sort of reference from the matrilineal and matriarchal societies that we have seen. And we can clearly see the difference of the organizational structure itself in matriarchal societies. So I think when I talk about feminist leadership, it is mainly that that definition of leadership should change.
Yeah.
It can change in various ways, but the core point would be that for me.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you. Dr. Kasturi? Yeah. Please go ahead.
Yes, ma'am. So for me, when it comes to women leadership or in general leadership, I believe it is all about capabilities. Because when we talk about leadership, it is I take ownership and accountability of my action. Plus, I am taking ownership and accountability of people whom I am leading. And it is not about one single person. It is about the hopes and aspiration of that person's family members also. So it's indirect. So leadership is a big responsibility according to me. And the very important element, be it male, be it female, it is about human leadership. So it is about building the capabilities which are not only skill based, but also where we are building the capability of understanding the value based and skill based leadership, a combination of both. And that builds the right ecosystem. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
We'll go to the
Diyaji?
next slide, Vibhuti. One
Yeah,
person,
okay, okay.
one last person.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Diyaji or Jutika Raju or Shrija Mukherjee, I think.
Just
Anybody,
take
one
one.
of you want? Yeah.
Ma'am,
My
Diyaji.
network is so wobbly.
yes, ma'am.
Yeah.
Ma'am, so for me, feminist leadership would mean that we are, as you mentioned in the presentation also, that uh, we have to understand that cartoon that you showed, that women, if they are in a leadership positions, they are often overlooked. Okay, we have household work and everything. I think women leadership will be that when we are recognizing these spaces as work and as mainstream work, rather just um, dividing it, or rather just saying ki, oh, that person who is sitting at home is not working. So I think that is a sense of leadership also, making these as skill sets, and not just
as work, gender biased work, okay, this is what only women do. That differentiation should not be there. And I think that's where we come up with feminist leadership. Yeah. Thank you.
Okay. So shall I move forward, Vibhuti?
Yes, 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 please.
Yeah. So let's go to the next slide. So what matters is actually, we do have women in various positions of power, either as, let's say, judges or surgeons or heads of institutions or even in politics. But they still don't form a critical mass. Okay. So it is often said that when women are in small numbers in an all male world, then women also behave like men. Okay. But when women grow in numbers in all these fields, then the rules of the game can be changed and they are more likely to question it and not get into a compliance mode. Okay. So when women are in a minority in leadership positions, they may be pressured to adopt behaviors and styles that are traditionally associated with male leadership, potentially suppressing their unique strengths and perspectives. So we do often find, women police extremely, what do you call it, forceful, extremely sometimes even violent. Okay. So these are places where one needs to look at what's really going on. So changing the game can happen when you have more numbers of women and they can change the existing norms, introduce different approaches, leading to more inclusive, collaborative, and effective styles. So from the idea of a feminist, what would be a feminist? What would be the feminist principles in leadership? Uh, let's go to the next slide. We do talk about within organizations when you just have women, but the organizations continue to be extremely hierarchical. There's very little that women can push and change. No matter how much they try, once these women leave that particular position, the system goes back to where it started. Okay. So women in leadership may be more likely to emphasize collaboration and teamwork. Okay. We're not saying that all women do this, but we are saying that this should be this can be seen as feminist principles of leadership, where there is greater emphasis on collaboration and teamwork and democratic processes of discussion, dialogue, consensus building, and arriving at, paths and ways forward rather than coming up with a diktat which says this has been approved by the higher up and by order, now all of you are supposed to do this, right? So, there's really no deliberative space there. Then prioritize empathy and emotional intelligence. That becomes also a very important feminist principle. And foster a more inclusive and diverse work environment, right? Instead of having just able-bodied, upper caste, upper class, largely men or few privileged women, you look for more inclusive and more diverse work environment. And you also invest in mentorship and create opportunities for team members to excel. Because you often find that when women get into leadership roles, whether in politics or in corporate sector or in any field for that matter, they actually, double up for women and men to do things more aggressively than men. Very often women in organizations say that it's better for me to have a male boss than a female boss, because female bosses, they come in and they never held these dandas before. So they wield the danda even more aggressively. Okay. And if institutions are patriarchal, they become like the mothers-in-law in these patriarchal institutions because they get rewarded for retaining that institution patriarchal with all its patriarchal glory. So it's important then for women to recognize the possibility of, standing up for each other, providing that necessary space and support, making sure that there is space for nurturance, care, and love, which are often seen as the so-called feminine principles, right? We value those because that is what all of us need, and that's what the world needs. It's not about more aggression, more brainless, thoughtless thinking and wars and violence, but actually looking at what is it that each of us need, what is that institutions can do better, how do we care for each other, how, which are more transformative. Thank you.
Thank
Is there another slide? I think I'm done. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Yes. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah. You can close it. Any questions? Please feel free to ask. I can respond.
Yeah. Today they have their own presentations also. So
I see. Okay, they're all nervous. So is everybody there or they're missing?
No, they are there, all 24.
They are all there.
And the others. Those who have opted for other platform, that's different. But on Zoom, we have 24 all.
Okay.
Because many are working professionals, so they have options also. Anytime,
Okay.
any day. And
Okay.
study. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So
Yeah.
anybody has anything to say, or you let me know if you want me to log out, I'll log out.
Yeah. So Professor Indira, would you like to, Acha, Urviji, do you want to ask? Yeah.
I just have one question. So, I mean, when we talk about, because ma'am has concluded this whole, presentation with the idea of how empathy is important to be introduced in leadership. And while I completely agree with it, however, I have just one question that I'm curious about. Because, when we think about Jacinda Ardern, she has become quite famous as a leader because she has been practicing that empathetic approach, and even during the pandemic she received a lot of appreciation for that. So that's amazing, no doubt about it. But I'm also wondering, how in debates of feminism we are constantly talking about uh, emotions, are not something that are only reserved for women. So I'm just trying to understand, this is not I mean, I'm not contradicting what Professor Lakshmi Lingam has said. I'm actually trying to understand to a way to frame this. Like, how do we talk about the idea of, emotions becoming relevant when that is also one aspect that we are fighting about, when it comes to women, because they're also constantly burdened with, emotively being perfect in their pursuits. So I hope, I'm not sure if I'm able to be clear with my question, but my question is that I'm really trying to understand, how do you contradict the debates that try to say that women are emotional, while also talking about how feminist leadership should have empathy and should consider emotions?
So, for the longest time, uh, telling someone that, you're emotional was often used as a way of attacking the person, to say that if you are an emotional person, it means you cannot make rational decisions. Okay. So ideas about being objective, being neutral, also then means that you need to be completely, devoid of any kind of emotion, right? Now, there could be an emotional outburst of someone, having a meltdown and crying, but you can clearly have a deep emotion about non-acceptance of injustice. Okay. So, for example, you're a judge and you are dealing with a case of child sex abuse or, sexual violence. How can you not be affected by that emotion of a complete bodily violation of a person, and, dehumanizing the person to such a great extent? Then unless those kind of emotions are strong. That kind of empathetic emotion is very strong. Those judges are not likely to give a judgment that would be just and right, and recognize the disadvantages people have in life. So, having emotion, having empathy is not counterproductive, is not counter to having good professional ethics, having clear, rational thought processes, following procedures, thinking through all your arguments. These are not versus the other. It's not one versus the other. Yeah.
Thank you, ma'am.
Yeah.
Yes, so thank you, ma'am, for your illuminating presentation, and your insights have provided us with invaluable perspectives on the complexities of achieving gender equality and the collective efforts required to drive a meaningful change. Are there any more questions from Lakshmi, ma'am? Yes,
They
so
all are.
yeah,
They all are.
we go forward the presentations. Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay,
We
bye.
should appreciate
Bye,
it
Lakshmi.
Yeah.
for
Bye,
the
Vibhuti.
thoughtful
Bye.
and detailed session.
Yeah.
And we look forward to welcoming you again at IMPRI's future programs. Thank you so much,
Yeah.
ma'am.
Thank you. Thank you,
Thank
Vaishnavi.
you.
All the best to
Thank
all the presenters.
All 24. Today we are taking only 12.
Oh,
We will have
oh,
another 50. On 15th, we will take remaining. Yeah.
sure. Okay. Bye.
And it will
Bye.
come out as an anthology, edited one.
Nice. Oh, lovely.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. We'll share with you.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Yeah.
ma'am.
So we'll move to our second session. And
Yeah.
as a culminating exercise of this fellowship, we now move to an interactive session where our fellows will showcase their creative projects. And each fellow will introduce themselves and their topic before beginning their presentation. This will be followed by remarks from our esteemed experts, and we encourage all fellows to engage actively in this discussion. The presentation order is as follows: ज्योतिका जी, पूर्वी जी, मेहरा इमाम जी, डॉक्टर उर्वी शर्मा जी, निहालिका यादव जी, प्राची शारदा जी, दिया श्रीवास्तवा जी, डॉक्टर कस्तूरी नायक जी, and Maya ji. So now I invite our first presenter, Jyotika ji, to begin with the presentation.
Hello everyone. Just give me 1 second and I'll share my presentation.
In the meanwhile, to the other presentees who have not accepted our request to be promoted as a panelist, we're sending you the request. Please accept that because that will allow you to use the share button, and also you'll be able to utilize the video and video button as well. So we're sending you the request. Please do not decline it. Accept it if you want to present your presentation today. Yes, Jyotika ji, please go ahead.
Can I just get some confirmation that my slides are visible?
Yes, they're visible. You'll be timed. We have the 5 minute limit, and Ria will let you know at the 4 minute mark that you have a minute to wrap up.
Okay, great. Can I start now?
Yes.
Okay, good evening, everyone. My name is Jyotika, and the aim of my study was to understand the impact that childcare accessibility has on women's workforce participation. And so my study titled Balancing Care and Careers, like I just want to explore this topic and understand what barriers women face in status quo itself. So to give everyone a brief introduction, right? What is the gender gap in the workforce itself? In India, we see that the female labor force participation is just 37%, which is quite much lesser than the global average, which is 47%. And especially the startling reality is that urban areas see lower participation at just 25.4%. And one of the main reasons that comes up is that childcare is quite unaffordable and quality childcare is quite inaccessible. So an ILO study that was conducted in the year 2018 said that 606 million women are unavailable or not looking for work because of care duties each year versus just 41 million men. So to understand what are we losing out because of this, what is the economic impact that's sort of going away? A McKinsey study tells us that $28 trillion could be added to the global GDP if we work towards women's equality. In India itself, a study says that domestic and care work is valued at about 15 to 17% of the GDP. And a lack of affordable childcare is taking away all of this from our current state itself. Let's look at the policies that exist in this place and what are the gaps itself. So we already have the Maternity Benefit Act, which was amended again in 2017 and passed on, which said that companies should have on-site creches for any company which has 50 plus employees. But right now, there's no public data on what is the creche compliance. There's a lot of weak enforcement at state level. And we don't see any companies actually going ahead with this initiative, especially in Bangalore, where there are a lot of IT companies. The research just shows that less than 5% of them actually work towards, providing some support to women. So when we look at the current state of workforce participation, we see that there is a paradox where education is rising. The levels of education that females are able to attain is rising, but participation rates remain stagnant at 36%, which is a stark, it's a disparity against what is actually expected economically, right? A lot of government initiatives for education have helped, but they've not been able to address workplace conditions that exist in status quo. So let's explore what are the barriers. They are twofold. Firstly, it's social and economic factors. Some of these are cultural expectations, a lack of affordable childcare options, force women to leave the workforce, and a lot of wage disparities and workplace safety concerns deter participation. There was a Deloitte study that was done in 2023, where 26% of women said that they leave their jobs because there's a lack of flexibility. What happens when women who have children choose flexibility is that it just reduces their visibility in a company and hinders their career growth options. So right now we're seeing a dual burden on women. The first is that they need to juggle paid work and unpaid care work, which is like a double responsibility itself. What kind of role does childcare accessibility play out in this whole ecosystem, right? To understand what the link is, I think childcare is a key enabler as pointed to by various studies by the ILO, by the World Bank, etc. But we see that in India, there's a lot of divide between the urban and the rural scenarios. Cities like Bangalore and more metropolitan cities have a rising demand, but they face a lot of quality and affordability issues, whereas rural areas rely on more informal care, which limit like stable employment options. The impact of this is first that women shift to part-time jobs or informal work, or just leave the workforce entirely.
Jyotika, you have 1 minute left.
Okay. There's a lot of evidence that points to how women and entrepreneurship can increase because of childcare and how investing in childcare just leads to economic growth and gender equality. So I conducted a study in Bangalore and assessed 29 mothers from the IT sector in Bangalore. What did I find? The first is that there's a lot of support gaps in the ecosystem. Employers don't assess childcare needs. 65% said they don't receive assessment of childcare needs, and 55% don't get any support. Who is providing the childcare? A majority of them are relying on family care or nannies. And location matters for a lot of people, where 74% prefer childcare within about 2 to 4 kilometers of within their home or workplace. But even with this, affordability still remains a barrier, where only 31% are 31% of them are still finding it unaffordable. So we see that it has a lot of impact on employment decisions. Women are forced to leave careers. The flexibility is not as available as women sort of prefer it. And there's a lot of unhappiness with the kind of childcare workplace childcare policies that exist in status quo. When we look at cultural perceptions, we see that society, about more than 58% of these women feel like society expects them to take on childcare responsibilities. 30% feel that their families discourage the use of formal childcare, and 24% feel like community norms reinforce that women are the ones who should be handling childcare itself. But a factor that really made a change was that women believe with spousal support, they say that cultural perceptions matter less. So the motherhood penalty, as we know, that it just is because when women take a break from work because of maternity leave, it just means that male colleagues are promoted higher, and they just start receiving lesser pay when they come back to the workforce. They're supposed to be more flexible with their time. And when there was a CV experiment that was done in Delhi, which shows that on a CV, just writing that, you are a mother drops the interview callbacks by 57%. but showing that you have childcare support increases it by reduces the penalty of not receiving callbacks by 20%. This is still because employers assume that mothers are less productive and available, and there's a lot of deep-rooted cultural norms. So the reality is that there's a lot of impact on workforce participation. Social perceptions still believe that children will suffer because of working mothers. There's a lot of wage disparity itself. So what really needs to change, and what do we need to look forward to? Firstly is policy reforms. We need to expand affordable childcare programs. We need subsidies and tax incentives for childcare services, especially companies that are willing to provide these services. We need better workplace solutions. We need on-site daycares as mandated by the Maternity Act. We need to see better governance in that area itself. And we need to see a societal shift where we redistribute caregiving responsibilities, and we give the same importance to paternity leave, so that women are not facing any hiring bias because people believe that they might take up maternity leave and sort of impact their companies worse off. And we just need to promote a better cultural acceptance of working mothers. Yeah, thank you.
Yes,
Thank you, Jyotika ji. Yeah, I think, are you going to take care of microaggression and also safe workplaces, both occupational health as well as freedom from sexual harassment?
No, ma'am, I'm just addressing one thing, which is childcare. I'm just doing a deeper analysis of what women in the field right now feel, what is missing, what are the things they want, what are the struggles that they face, and trying to understand what the ecosystem is, especially because IT companies, they say that, they give them flexible timings, etc., but how that's again affecting how they are being promoted, how these women are being viewed as company assets itself, and how that's sort of affecting their progression up the societal social ladder.
And shifts, like a night shift and all, shift duties. So that is
Yeah,
directly linked to
Mhm.
childcare, no?
Yeah.
The shift duties are also in safe transport.
Hmm.
Because work from home is not always, they are not ready to give 100% work from home.
Correct.
They are demanding them to come to this. So I think shift duty you should take up, because most of the crimes against women in IT sector have happened during while traveling at night. The Pune murder, rape and murder, Bangalore rape and murder case, Delhi also. So that is very much this thing, safety. Because they are just given reimbursement of Ola and Uber. That's not a problem. That's not a solution. You need a safe mobility, no? And that's the major, even UNDP study shows that highly qualified women are not this thing. After Nirbhaya tragedy, there is a major decline, even in a highly competent women. So I think you should take safety issue. Indira ji,
Actually, I've been discussing with Jyotika and her questionnaire and other things, but I feel she is mainly focusing on childcare facility available and how it is costing women in terms of employment and wages and other things. It's a very, very focused study on understanding IT sector and the care facilities available or not available. So I think she will restrict it to only the care facility. I'm asking her to increase her sample size so that from government, public sector institutions and also private sector, if possible, to include, so that we will see what is happening in public sector IT industries.
But what are you talking about? Because whether it is a community-based care of children or in the office, there should be crashes.
No, both. What kind of child care? Not necessarily in office, but what kind of child care facilities are available? How they are influencing the decisions of the these girls who want to get into their employment, and also if they are taking a break. If they are taking a break, is it because of lack of child care facility, and how much it is costing them? Whether there is any kind of subsidy from the institution. But it is good to have some sample from public sector IT companies also. But she is finding it difficult to find any sample from the public sector IT industries. It is very, very difficult to collect data from the getting access itself is very, very difficult. to
Unless
this.
you know somebody and snowball sampling,
Yeah,
because
they
that's
don't give
my
access. They don't.
my
yeah.
colleague also did it, but then it had to be snowball. If one or two knew, they introduced them to
Yeah,
their
it is snowball
colleagues.
sampling. Here also it is snowball sampling. She's
Yeah.
following snowball sampling. Yes.
But
But
I
I
think
want
some
her
of
to
the
include some, yes, tell me.
some of the progressive measures, for example, in Mumbai, all those women executives who are traveling by their own car, or they travel by the personalized transport, they are requested not to resign, and they can bring the baby to because they have independent office. So they take the baby in a crib. They can also feed the
Yes.
baby. This thing,
Yes.
there is a privacy, they can, so they are working. And this same thing, I think, in Chennai, so many corporates, for a highly competent women executives and all management, they counseled them not to give up job. And because their
Yes.
talents were, and they were ready to give that, they could bring the child on, because they don't have to take child in a very overcrowded transport. No, the child's
That
safety
management
is
perspective is also very, very important.
important.
How
Correct.
they are not only just having or not having a crush, but also the attitude of the employers. That is also very important. But getting access is, she's trying her best to get
Because
some.
companies are quite protective of their data. Like when I spoke to a few HR
Yeah.
people, because we're
Yeah.
asking, saying what kind of things do you provide, it sort
Yeah.
of paints them in a bad light if they say no. And
Yeah,
the reason I
she tried actually.
Yeah, the
Yeah.
reason I wanted to explore this is because there is a law. It states that you should have on-site care, you should have something close by, but no one's doing it. So that's why I
This
just wanted
compliance
to
is very difficult. Yes,
Compliance is very difficult. Correct. Even when we did a survey, the same thing was there. For us, major problem was that some of the big companies like Parle Group and all had a crash, but there were hardly 2-3 children, because the commuting in Bombay becomes difficult, because taking
She
the
also
child.
looked at if there are, yeah, she also looked at if there is any gender policy within the company. She was also looking at policy
I have some
perspective.
data on that too. I'll be adding that to my paper. So
Yeah, she will add it
Yeah.
to her paper. Looking
Yeah.
from the policy perspective, whether there is any policy, gender policy, or inclusion of gender in any other policies.
Very good stuff. And
Thank
it's so timely, because this is the time we need it. We have talent, but because of this absence of gender sensitivity, women are not able to contribute to nation building. Yeah.
thank you.
Yes, Jo.
So thank you, Jyotika ji. Now we invite Purvi ji to present her project.
Hello, am I audible?
Yes, ma'am, you're audible.
Yeah. So I'll just share my screen. Just give me a second. Are you able to
What
share?
happened?
Are you able to see the screen?
No, ma'am, it's not visible.
Meanwhile, somebody else can. Vibhuti has some other assignment also.
Yes, ma'am. We can move to Mahira ji.
Hello.
I have to just introduce this thing for a good international Gujarati program. The speaker, who is a feminist, Neeta Hartikar. That is at 9, quarter to 9.
Yes, Mahiraji, please go ahead with the presentation.
Yeah, just.
Increase the font size.
Yeah, I'll do.
It's not legible.
Ma'am, is it fine now?
Yeah, now you can.
Okay. A very good evening to everyone. So the title of my paper, the project which I'm about to do is Women Panchayats and Digital Inclusion, Transforming Local Governance. So with this paper, I have tried to explore the challenges faced by women, women who are in the PRIs regarding to digital divide. And we have also discussed here the solutions ensuring greater digital inclusion in rural governance.
Mahiraji, could you please put this in a slideshow mode?
Yeah.
Is it fine?
It's on working mode only. Please put it in slideshow mode from
Go
our
up.
I think the fourth button.
Slideshow. You can read it, on the top.
But here it's coming as a stop slide control. If I'm
No,
putting
let
in-
it be. Let it be.
Okay, ma'am, please continue.
Okay. So women's participation in governance is a crucial for democratic decentralization and inclusive rural development. The 73rd Constitutional Amendment Act of 1992 was a landmark reform that reserved 1/3 seat of PRIs. That was PRIs for women, significantly increasing their leadership roles at the grassroots level. However, despite their growing presence in local governance, the digital divide remained a major barrier to their effective participation. Limited access to technology, digital literacy, and socio-economic
Mahiraji, you're muted.
Oh, I'm sorry, I was reading it. I'm sorry. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. I'm really sorry. I thought I'm reading it, but I don't know. Maybe. Okay. Okay, ma'am. Yeah. So, additionally, low levels of digital literacy hinder their ability to navigate government portals, access welfare schemes, and participate in virtual training programs, whereas socio-cultural restrictions such as traditional gender roles, mobility limitation, and patriarchal norms discourage women from using technology, reinforcing their exclusion from digital governance process. Even when digital governance initiatives such as the Digital India program aim to promote technology inclusion, the gender digital divide persistent due to inadequate training, financial constraints, and lack of localized digital empowerment programs. Addressing this divide is crucial to strengthening women's leadership in PRIs, digital inclusion infrastructure and literacy programs and policy support can empower women representatives to effectively engage in governance, access information, and make informed decision. Bridging the digital gap is not just about technology, it is about ensuring equitable access to democratic participation and enabling women to fully exercise their leadership potential in rural governance. I have this, and the digital divide refers, here I have used that NFHS data and like how, and then one study about Anita Gurumurthy, who has talked about digital literacy. Then I would like to give, the four few case studies which I have incorporated into the study, into this paper. One was the Chavi Rajwat. She is from Rajasthan. Chavi Rawat, the Sarpanch of Soda village in Rajasthan, is one of the few highly educated women leaders who have utilized digital tools to implement e-governance initiatives. She introduced a digital literacy program and e-governance application to improve administrative efficiency and transparency in her panchayat. Then again, one is Rajni Devi. She is from Haryana. Rajni Devi is a sarpanch from Haryana. Leverage WhatsApp and online portals to enhance communication between villagers and government officials. Her digital initiative have streamlined grievances, redressal, and mechanism, making governance more accessible to rural women. Then Kusum Devi from Bihar. As a panchayat member in Bihar, Kusum Devi championed digital literacy campaign targeting women by collaborating with NGOs and tech firms. She facilitated a workshop on mobile banking, online education, and accessing government welfare schemes. So, these are the few cases which I have incorporated for this study. I will be including more and will be will be analyzing more how we can do with this thing. Then coming to the digital inclusion can play an transformative women's participation in PRIs by addressing key challenges. There are four key challenges which I have not analyzed, but I have gone through is that access to information and resources, digital, and then coming to the capacity building training, then enhancing participation in decision making. Bridging the, how we can bridge these how we can bridge the this divide. There are four stages or steps we can talk about. One was the digital literacy and capacity building and infrastructural development. Then coming to this policy support and institutional mechanism and community-based digital ecosystem. Coming to the conclusion, I just wanted to highlight one of the important study by Amartya Sen. He has talked about concept of development as a freedom, which emphasizes that the true development occurs when individual have the capability to make choices and exercise agency in their socio-political empowerment environment. And coming to this concluding remark, the future of democratic governance in India depends on the closing this digital gap, thereby transforming PRIs into truly inclusive institution where women's leadership is not only recognized but effectively exercised. This is kind of working paper which I'm working on, and there are so many. I have to modify it into a more so that I can incorporate more case studies and more inclusive policies which we can use. Thank you so much.
Have you been able to interview women elected representatives with regards
No,
to
no, ma'am.
digital?
Till now I have not done that because mostly I was focusing on to that collecting the secondary data. But now the secondary data has been combined. So now I'm going to talk about a few, from Uttar Pradesh only, I will be interviewing or trying to
Where
get
are you?
into
In
some.
which place in Uttar Pradesh? Where are you in Uttar Pradesh?
Ma'am, Gorakhpur.
Acha, Gorakhpur. There, yeah.
Yeah.
So are you with the doing training of women in Panchayati Raj institution? Okay. Thanks.
Yeah.
So All India Institute of Local Self-Government.
Yes, yes.
Indira ji?
Yeah, no, she should take focus group discussions or
Yes.
in-depth interviews. In-depth interviews she should be using, and so you select your respondents in such a way, if possible, they are in different areas of your district, not necessarily from the same district, and also link it to the policy and this Mahila Snehi Panchayat. I don't know if women friendly panchayat, if they are aware of this and are they doing something in this direction. So things like that you can also inquire with them, but you have in-depth interviews with them to and prepare your case study, go with a checklist so that you will have some comparable, some themes come out of your interviews. Yeah.
Sure, ma'am, sure.
Because National Alliance of Women's Organization, the Kanpur branch is also doing this work, Madam Neelam Chaturvedi, and Sakhi Kendra, that is also doing Panchayat, that training. So I think you can get in touch with them and they will also help you. FDG seems to be unrealistic because getting elected.
Yeah, that is difficult. I know.
For a
in-depth
civilian,
interviews,
it's
what? Yeah.
in-depth
No,
interview.
I had, in-depth interviews in mind. She can have in-depth
Yeah.
interviews. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, if you happen to go to their training programs or capacity building programs, if then during lunch break or this thing you can have, but otherwise getting them together on a one this thing won't be done.
No, it is not possible. No.
So I'm writing this one, WhatsApp number and email ID of Sakhi Kendra and National Alliance of Women's Organization.
Yeah.
How far is Kanpur from Gorakhpur?
It, ma'am, 4 hours travel.
Actually, but just you can even have a Zoom meeting with her.
Yeah.
Neelam Chaturvedi. Please.
Okay, meanwhile,
It's
we'll
progressing
move
well.
on to the next participant. Purviji, you can start your presentation. Purviji, are you there? Ma'am, you're not audible.
Hello, am I audible now?
Yes, you're audible now.
Yeah, so very good evening to everyone. So today I will be discussing the literature review that I have for my research, which is titled Breaking Barriers Through Gender Inclusive Skill Development Policies. And with this, I'll focus on how online training programs they impact young women in tier 2 and tier 3 cities. So before I dive into the specificities of my study, I would like to thank Indra ma'am for sharing with me the periodical labor force survey and the Pradhan Mantri Kaushal Skill Yojana program. So with that, I have taken the insights. So as we know that in tier 1 cities, there are so many opportunities being metropolitan. There are a lot of opportunities, but that same case is different when we talk about tier 2 and tier 3 cities. So with the report that I have, according to the PLFS for the year 2023 and 24, the participation was for women is 35.5% in rural areas, which is only 22% in urban areas. And it is significantly lower than the participation of men on an overall rate, which is 78.8%. Additionally, the unemployment rate among young women between the age group of 15 to 29 is 20.1% as compared to men, which is only 12.8%. So with this, it can be easily concluded that women, they still face significant barriers in accessing employment opportunities, even after having so many capacity building programs, public welfare programs, government schemes. There is still a great barrier, which is a great bridge between employment and education that needs to be abridged. So moving to the second slide, the problem statement that I have come is with the first thing is the limited access to online skill development programs due to low digital literacy and uneven internet access. So if we talk about tier 2 cities and tier 3 cities, there are areas, there are districts where internet facility is still low. Then again, a major issue is the social cultural barrier that has restricted women's participation in training and employment. So during COVID-19, it has been observed that many women were enrolled in online training programs. And if we speak about the age group of 18 to 24, there were around 9 lakh, I would come up with the exact figure, around 9 lakh women who had enrolled for the NPTEL and the SWAYAM courses, but hardly 6,000 or 4,000 women, they could give the exam. So the ratio of women enrolling in the programs and leaving in between is high. There is a mismatch. Ma'am, can you go to the, yeah. So there is a mismatch between training programs and industry demands, again, which has led to underemployment or informal sector work. So this has been observed that many women, they do have a training, but when they seek employment, that training is either it is not valid in the market, or the market trends have changed that they are not able to get a good wage for it. So for that reason, for a lower wage, better than working, they think it's better to stay at home and do something else, which is near their vicinity. So with this, keeping these things in mind, I have formulated this research to analyze these barriers more and come up with strategies so that I can abridge the impact of online skill development program and match it with women's employability. Moving on to next slide. So these three are the possible research questions that I have come with. Firstly, it is who are the women accessing online skill development program in tier 2 and tier 3 cities. So with this question, I aim to target the population size, which will be the age group of women, married or unmarried, and seeing the specificity of how many women in those groups, what is the ratio of women enrolling in online courses, of how many have actually benefited from it, how many have left it in between, and how many they think to enroll again. The second question deals with what challenges do young women they face in enrolling in and completing online vocational course. Again, the first challenge can be monetary issues, funding the online courses. Secondly, leaving the, even if they are promoted by the government, or there are some CSR activities going on which gives partial or full reimbursement to the vocational training, still there are challenges where women they leave the courses in between. The third research question that I have come with is how effective are these programs in improving employability? Especially, this has come in line with the PLFS employment trends, which again I have mentioned in my introduction, and that there are low as compared to men for the previous year.
Purviti, you have a minute left.
So moving on, the next slide. So these are the objectives. It's to examine the policy level and to assess how online training influences job readiness. Since with the introduction of AI, market trends have been changing every 6 months. So the courses have to be updated enough so that women who are enrolling in them, they are industry ready. So with this, I have in my summary and my literature review that I'll be sharing in the next few weeks. In my literature review, I have made an extensive detail about how these policy insights that have been shared by the government are still lacking, and still there is a loop that is still there between the policies and their execution. So I have been working on it. So this was, can we move on to the next slide?
Next.
Yeah. So this is the scope of my study. These three things I have taken in consideration and I'll be working on it. Next, please. Yes, so this is the literature review. So as you can see, I have mentioned the statistics that have this is the possible conclusion as well. If I'll come up with, can we move on to the next slide? I need to share the methodology. Yeah, so I have highlighted the challenges in online skill development. So these three are the main reasons why women are leaving the programs, why they are, after completing the program, they are still not willing to relocate and shift to other places for employment basis. Next, please. So like I have already mentioned, I will be targeting tier 2 and tier 3 cities. Yes, not all, but I'll be targeting a particular sector. My population size will be women aged between 18 to 35, and there will be subdivision, those who have already enrolled in online courses, those who are planning to, and those who have completed or they have left in between. So primary data collection would be these online surveys. Sample size would be 100 women enrolled. The key focus would be on the demographics, the training experience, and the employability impact. Now, secondary data collection, I have used these two employment trend and government reports for my study. Moving on to the next, please. So this is the ethical in consideration that I would be taking in care. Informed consent would be there. There would be a voluntary participation, digital safety. There would be privacy and anonymity for those who wish to keep their profiles private.
Would
Next,
you
please.
kindly conclude, ma'am?
Sure. So this is the limitation. Sample bias would be there. There is a digital access. Yes, there would be poor internet connectivity, but that is not the whole issue. So I'll try to work. On these bottleneck situations. Next slide, please. These are the references that I have taken for my study. Thank you.
Which geographical location you are going to conduct your interviews and all, primary data collection?
Primary data collection, ma'am, would be my online service. So I will target the city Jammu, and my sample size would be 100 women.
From all over India, tier 2, tier 3 cities all over India or in one state?
Ma'am, I would target one state, seeing the limitation of time. So I would be targeting Jammu city. So my sample size would be 100, and women would be from the age between 18 to 35.
Yeah. And will you also do the comparative analysis that why certain states are responding more to all these digitally guided schemes and all? So
certainly,
the
ma'am, I'll try
response.
to inculcate it using the secondary data collection. As per the primary data, the sample size is small. So if I get more time, I'll certainly move on to some other states so that I can have a comparative analysis on why certain cities are doing much better.
Meghalaya finishes all money, whichever schemes are there, Meghalaya finishes. So how do they do? Literacy rate is very high, technology, early capable workforce is also there. So I think this understanding which are the enabling factor and disabling factor, it will be helpful, if you do the comparison.
Sure, ma'am. I'll take that into consideration.
Indira.
No, I have been talking to her also, Purvi also. I have been talking to her and discussing. She is to contact, I think. Are you planning to contact those who are registered for the online course, is it?
Yes,
So
ma'am,
in-
I will be targeting the all the three divisions of those who have enrolled.
And
Once,
where will you get this list from?
ma'am, I'll from online survey only. So in
No,
the
you
online
have,
survey, the questionnaire would include what kind of online course they have enrolled. So they'll provide a link also. That would
okay.
be
so that
also
is
an
the,
option.
you mean Google Doc or Survey
Google Doc.
Monkey?
Yes, ma'am, Google Doc. Because Google Doc has
Okay.
this option of even you can be anonymous as well, and you can share your identity.
Yes, yes.
So it's much more
Yes.
flexible.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, it is good. You specifically look at the policies yourself are telling how there are gaps and how they are not gender sensitive. Analyze the policy, this skill development policy, if there are any provisions for gender sensitivity. And in continuation of what our earlier Lakshmi Lingam has spoken about horizontal equity and vertical equity, wherever I go, I always talk about it when we are talking about equity. That is for the benefit of everybody. When we are talking about the vertical equity, so that is, unequally located, so people can be unequally treated. That is also fair. It is not anything specific. We are not asking for anything extra. For ages, there is inequality and they are differentially located. So it is perfectly all right to have differential treatment. So that is why you should look at the policy, that is skill development policies, if there are any specific considerations, whether they are gender sensitive or gender blind, or how it can be made gender sensitive. You can think of on those lines. Okay? Yeah.
Because so many schemes, when they are community based, they become successful. While you have to go
Yeah.
to the institute, they don't become, no? Because women, even for vaccination, when women were asked to go to the hospital, nobody went because they did not. But when they shifted to the community, then women opted for it, because even that mobility becomes a problem, no? From home to
Yes.
for women. So all those micro aspects, no, of the day-to-day lived experiences, if that also you can capture, because it is a qualitative study, that would really bring very important dimensions. The states which are providing this kind of schemes and training at a doorstep, you get massive enrollment. No?
Yeah.
But that is, yeah.
Okay, so thank you, Purviji. And now we invite Urviji to present her project.
I'm just sharing my screen.
Sure, ma'am, please.
Are you able to see my screen?
Yes, it's visible.
Yes, yeah, visible.
Just a second. Okay, so good evening, everyone. I'm Dr. Urvi Sharma, and I am going to present on my research article, which is basically about the sexist framing of female politicians in mainstream media. And I've titled it Through the Looking Glass and What Misogyny Alice Found There. So this is actually a sequel of Alice in Wonderland, which was called Through the Looking Glass and What Alice Found There. And why I titled it this was because when Alice goes through the looking glass to this wonderland, she meets Red Queen. She meets two queens, and one of the queens the Red Queen tells her, if you want to get somewhere else, you must run at least twice as fast as that. Now, of course, this is in terms of, how the time is inverted in this particular land, and how she has to do something in reverse and the timing is all upside down. But I've used it because I felt that it is important for us to see how all the politicians, particularly females, are carrying this double burden. They are not just there for policy making, but they also have to take care of how are they projecting themselves, not just as human beings and leaders, but also as women. So it's the kind of, the burden that they have to carry. So basically, my research deals with I think this is something that we discussed in the very first session that we had at IMPRI, which was about how, there's this legislation that allows 33% of women to be in the parliament. And there's a similar such legislation in Panchayati Raj institutions. But if you look at 2024 statistics, you would be able to understand that more women voters are turning out, but there are not as many women politicians that are joining leadership roles. And there has to be a why for research. And for my why, I am assuming, this is a larger hypothesis that I am pre-assuming, that it is because of the sexist framing of female politicians in mainstream media that a large number of women are dissuaded from, joining politics. So the focus of my research article is the basic idea that it is on the account of the sexist projection of female politicians in mainstream media. They're far lesser than they should be. So at present in 18th Lok Sabha, we only have 13.6% of women, which is very, very low. So my focus is particularly on women politicians in India, because I was trying to look at, if there's any such study that has been done in India. And I was able to find a large number of studies that have been done on female politicians outside India, and how they are there are gendered framings of these politicians. But I wasn't able to find any such broader study that was done on female politicians in India. I mean, of course, there were many articles that I could find, but no such research study. So the methodology that I am using is largely that of reception theory, where I'm looking at, where basically I selected which politicians I would be looking at. So I tried to look at the ones which are currently active in national politics. And I tried to look at, newspaper articles, their interviews, what are the kind of questions that have been asked to them, what are the kind of the headlines that have been, and if they are, different from the kind of the questions that are being asked to their male counterparts. So the textual analysis of these writings, then the thematic analysis, what kind of stuff is being talked about with respect to them and with them. And then also, of course, the intersectional analysis, where I'm not, because I think something that we have reiterated at this institute is about how we cannot confront patriarchy without confronting other structures of oppression, like caste, like race, like even white supremacy, in that sense. So this is something that I was also interested in looking at, like what are these women, how their caste or how their identity, apart from being the woman, is also covered. There's some more, because I have only been able to look at Draupadi Murmu and President Draupadi Murmu and Mayawati from that caste angle, because other politicians come from certain respect. So I'm still trying to look more in just see that I also that press. What I could find out was that both of them, to a certain extent, but President Draupadi Murmu more than ex-President Pratibha Patil, have been portrayed as certain kind of ceremonial figures. So most of the times when their names emerge in newspapers, you would see how Prime Minister's name or Home Minister's name is published before the President's name, which does not really is agreeable according to the way it should be represented in the Constitution. Then I think Sonia Gandhi, every time you read about her articles, there's some kind of subtle re-emphasis on her Italian origin, on her relationship with Gandhi family, on her personal life, which basically creates a more personal and emotional. And most of these narratives with respect to Sonia Gandhi, at least in the present times, are not negative, but there is more emphasis on her personal and emotional life than on her political life. So this was very evident. Then in terms when I looked at the articles about Mamta Banerjee and similarly for Mayawati, I could find that most of the articles would often label them as aggressive and impulsive, and there were certain framings in which they were called shrill. So suppose there was a flood and it would say that shrill Mamta Banerjee opposes to this in a shrill voice. Now shrill is something which is a very sexist term, and you would not see. So somebody like Sambit Patra, his article would never be headlined that Sambit Patra says that in a shrill tone, even though one might think that he does that usually. But this is not the kind of a language that you would see being used for male politicians. Then Smriti Irani, there's again, a lot of discussion about her appearance, her personality, her educational degrees, also her family, which overshadows whatever the kind of, the policy work that she is doing, which again reinforces the stereotype of women in politics. Similarly, I also looked at Mahua Moitra's media portrayal, which revolves around her, very aggressive speeches, her appearances, how she has dressed up for a parliament session, which becomes more important than the content of the speech or the policy issues that she is talking about in her speeches. Then, of course, Kangana Ranaut, I think, has become a very polarized celebrity in general. I'm not sure if she should be named as a politician with all these politicians who have been seasoned to a certain extent. But at the same time, she is an elected politician, and we see how there is always this kind of very polarizing response that everything she says invites. And it has a lot to do with, of course, because of the kind of the controversial statements she keeps making at times, but it definitely has something to do with her being a woman. Because even if you look at many male politicians who make such controversial statements, they do not invite a similar kind of retraction as Kangana Ranaut has in the recent year. So I'm just going to take a quick look at the articles that show the very sexist nature of the portrayal in mainstream media of female politicians. So these were certain articles that
You have 1 minute left.
Yes, so these are just some articles, and you can look at how President Murmu's name has been mentioned after PM Modi's name. This is something, and then there's this article. This was published in Telegraph, and there was a lot of controversy around this. How Smriti Irani has been called anti-national. So you understand how even this term anti has been used in a very sexist manner, almost as a kind of abuse that people hurl at each other without realizing that aunties are probably the most productive element. I mean, our mothers are the aunties who are getting all the things done, so they are such a productive members of our society, but the term itself has come to connote something so negative. And similarly, how Mayawati and Mamta Banerjee, this term shrill has been used for them. And again, Mahua Moitra, I could find this particular article which really disturbed me, which was about, how she has been. So this article talks about how Mahua Moitra has shook up the misogyny and hypocrisy of Indian politics. But the byline reads, a divorcee who likes a glass of wine and a pair of Ferragamo shoes, the opposition MP has become a target of character assassination for Narendra Modi's conservatives, but she hits back twice as hard. So now it could be a reclamation of all the character assassination that is happening. But this byline itself suggests how there is so much of emphasis on the appearance, on her divorce status as a woman in politics. So these were some of the larger things that I could conclude through looking at a larger number of other headlines and interviews too about these politicians, that there's a focus on appearance of female politicians. There's a lot of emotional words that are used in terms of their characters: aggressive, impulsive, things like that. There's certain kind of leadership stereotypes, again, which is closely related to their emotional or appearances. And then of course their family and personal life become very important, so there's a disproportionate focus on their personal lives, and this also becomes a way in which they're stereotypically represented on the basis of their gender. So even if they are soft spoken, emotional, or aggressive, something or the other would continuously be used to set them apart from their male counterparts, which eventually impacts public perception, and people begin to undermine the credibility of these female politicians, and the political skills in making policies, or in their legitimacy in the political domain itself. So that's largely what I am working on. I would love your comment and feedback and uh, criticism on this. Thank you.
I think most important thing that you need to bring out the gaps which are there in media coverage, where they don't write about what they have done. As politicians, you can't survive as a politician unless you nurture your constituency, okay? So do they keep in touch with the constituency? Have they used gender responsive budgeting? How many schemes they brought in their constituency? How many people do they have like one day in a week or this for communication with the constituency? Unless you nurture your community, nobody will vote for you. So at that ground level, what all they have done, that is just not projected by the media, no? But for men, if they do, male politicians, if they get some road constructed, or if they inaugurate some flyover, or they get some this thing, no, more they bring more business for their constituency, or they get the foreign FDI, foreign direct investment, FII, that is reported by the media. But when women do it, that is not at an operational level, because there are so many programs, no, anti-poverty programs, infrastructural programs. Have they used this? Have they sent the proposals to the state government or to the union government to get these schemes and programs for their this thing? Plus, have they done it for either social sector or for gender, like gender concerns, no, to educate more schools, more health centers, or housing schemes, or the skill training program? What kind of developmental investment these women politicians have made? When we go when we go into the constituency, we get to know. Like when I went to UP for gender training, for the budget training, I had read only negative things about Mayawati. But it was the poor people in UP. They told me that she brought all the anti-poverty programs to the village. Earlier, the religion bastis were at the outskirts of the village. Even they could not get one pitcher of water. Or the wages with the agriculture workers got was nothing but a one lota of sugarcane juice. That was the wages they were given. She saw to it that the minimum wages of the state of UP were given to them. Even MG Narega, the corruption leakage. So this kind of developmental investment which they make to nurture their community, when it comes to women politicians, they don't. They are only talking about their anatomy and their character and the kind of dress and it is not only for Indian women. Even when the foreigners came, when that lady from Pakistan came, foreign minister, they were only talking, newspapers were only about writing about which brand of purse she was wearing and using, and which brand of shoes she was wearing, and how was her coat, from which particular transnational corporation it was there. Nobody talked about her, how did she, her legacy of being a getting such an important portfolio. You can't become foreign minister just like that. No, you have to know the geopolitics. So none of them even asked her a question about geopolitics. They were only concerned about how glamorous she looked. No, so I think that in your analysis, because silences also speak a lot. What is the strength of qualitative research? You try to interpret the silences. Why is media silent about these are the important aspects that you can bring out in your discussion. No, after giving this narrative report, you can bring out the discussion in the discussion, the gaps which you find in terms of the performance evaluation of women politicians.
Thank you, ma'am. I'll definitely incorporate that.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
sometimes you may get it in a small newspapers, you may get like regional
Yes, ma'am.
newspaper.
Yes,
They
yes.
may this thing because when they invite them to felicitate when the road is inaugurated or when the school is built or when a community center is used from the MP fund. Another important question is that MPLAD, member of Parliament Local Area Development Fund, each and every MP and MLAs are given. Are they utilizing that fund? Because even to use fund, you have to work hard. You have to send proposal, you have to get it passed, you have to be after the bureaucrats to implement the program. No? So some of the star MPs are accused of not using that fund. While the others, they completely exhaust money. In Northeast, the record is very good. The MPs there are constantly like seeing to it that they develop their area constituency.
I'll definitely, ma'am, look into that. Is there any way I can get access to this data
Yeah.
on the website?
MPLAD, Member
MPLAD.
of Parliament Local Area Development.
I'll-
How much they have used, you will get the data on how many proposals different MPs and MLAs have given and how many projects they have executed.
I'll definitely, ma'am, look into it. Thank you so much.
Yeah. I just want to know, Urvi, why have you not included any politician from South?
Yeah.
Yeah, maybe one or two. Right now, Shobha Karandlaje from Karnataka.
Okay, ma'am.
Yeah.
Shobha is there. Of course, Kandimani from Tamil Nadu also you have. Yeah. And also...
earlier, the health minister of Kerala, teacher, Shija teacher.
Health minister. Yeah, I forgot her name. Geeta or something. Yeah.
I'll definitely. Actually, ma'am, I had added Supriya Sule earlier, but then I could not really find. So, in terms of her, I could only find certain articles that talk about her dynasty politics, which is there with respect to other men too. So, I will include more southern politicians. Thank you for this feedback. I've noted down the names. I'll look into it.
Okay.
She was felicitated also, no? The health minister, KK Shailaja teacher.
Shailaja teacher, yes.
Shailaja teacher you can do because she's the one person, and despite her popularity at a ground level, they saw to it that she did not contest Lok Sabha election. Otherwise, she was chief minister candidate. That's what was the predictions made, but she was completely marginalized by her own political party. But though, despite doing the best work during the pandemic and getting so many accolades globally, right from WHO to everybody admired. So Shailaja teacher you can take.
Yes, ma'am. I'll incorporate.
There are several articles in Hindu and Frontline about her.
Okay, ma'am.
So I think along with the negative portrayal, you also come up with the...
Yes, definitely.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Urviji. And we now move on to Nihalika Yadavji.
Ma'am, am I audible?
Yes, ma'am, you're audible.
I'll just share the screen. Ma'am, is my screen visible?
Yes, it is in working mode. You can make it full screen, and because your font size is very small. If you can do it, fine. it's not happening, then leave it.
Just
It's okay, go ahead.
Is it visible now? Is it better now?
Yes, yes, it is better.
My topic is India's care economy, its current status, and the journey ahead. So, in with defining care economy, this definition that I've written is taken from the United Nations Women document, which was released in June 2022, which defines unpaid care work as all unpaid services provided by individuals within a household or community for the benefit of its members, including care of persons and domestic work. Common examples include cooking, cleaning, collecting water and fuel, and looking after children, older persons, and persons with illness or disabilities. Voluntary community work that supports personal household care, such as community kitchens or childcare, are also forms of unpaid care work. Now, the reason that we need to talk about care economy is the fact that it is highly gendered in nature, which represents our stereotypical biases, which are present not only in the society but are perpetuated by market and the state as well, and where women are disproportionately engaged here. Now, there are debates within feminism also as to use the word economy or not, like because care comes naturally to all human beings or any living being for that matter. So they opine that it will wash away the altruistic nature of the care if we add the word economy to it. But again, there's a market aspect also added to it, because society, market, state, and gender interact with each other on a daily basis. So there are some aspects which are not which we do not see because they are invisibilized, and we do not have any tangible data that can be relied upon. Yes. So the gendered nature of domestic activities and care work. Recently, the Indian government released the Time Use Survey report, which shows that women spend 201 minutes more than men per day in unpaid household work. Though the amount of time being spent by women on unpaid domestic activities has reduced from 299 minutes per day in 2019 to 289 minutes per day in 2024, but this picture is not very bright because it is still the women who are disproportionately engaged in doing unpaid domestic activities, including care work, due to which they are not able to participate in the labor force, in the labor market. The survey also revealed that women spent 137 minutes per day on caregiving duties, whereas men spent only 75 minutes per day for the same. The survey also revealed that 41% of women participated in caregiving activities as compared to only 21.4% of men. Now, where does the Indian state stand in catering to the needs of care economy? This is an unfortunate fact that India currently spends less than 1% of its GDP on care economy and care related infrastructure. Economic surveys of last year and this year also highlighted that we need to invest more in care infrastructure, but the union budget missed this opportunity in making some tangible and outcome producing investments for care related infrastructure. Though this year there has been some over 30% there has been increase in the gender budget, but it is not primarily for the schemes targeted for women, but it has been because the scheme called Pradhan Mantri Garib Anna Kalyan Yojana has been included, which has the highest share of gender budget. So this shows that our state is still lacking in initiating efforts to cater to the needs of care economy. There are issues. There are certain issues with some acts and schemes also. Like there is this central child care leave, which is not binding on the states. Which it provides 730 days of paid maternal leave, and also there is problem in its language. It highlights, it writes only females can take this and men can take it only if they are single fathers. Now if the state in its language itself is mentioning that only women can take this, which it very directly reflects the stereotypical understanding of our state also. And the similar is observed in our schemes, for example Ujjwala scheme, or any other scheme, the ICDS, Anganwadi workers, ASHA workers. We see that in every poster of the scheme, in every advertisement, there are only women. Now it does recognize that the women who take upon this responsibility, but it also reflects the gendered hierarchies in paid and unpaid care work. Now, ASHA workers, Anganwadi workers, ANMs, domestic workers are highly ignored in the framework of care work, wherein there is a serious lack of recognition of their work and lack of social security benefits like fixed minimum wages and health insurances. Now, the case of ASHA workers is very prominent even currently because ASHA workers in Kerala have been protesting for over 27 days because they are demanding they want insurances for health, they want fixed wages, and they want health insurances, but their demands are not being paid heed to. They want their honorariums to be increased. They have not been paid their even the salaries that they were being given for over 2 months. So this shows that we need to do better here. Now, challenges faced. Prabha Koteshwaran, in one of her articles, highlights the approach of the Indian courts towards unpaid care work, where she opines that the view of the courts is problematic because it is based on the ideology of altruism, which assumes that it is the mothers who sacrifice their lives and individualities for their families and children, and hence they need to be compensated monetarily in case of accidents under motor vehicles acts, etc. But even this stand by the Indian courts, Indian judiciary is problematic because though it says that women, again the same thing that government does, though it is the women who carry on this care work, but it cannot be based in the ideology of altruism. Give them the compensation or the dependence on the homemakers because they deserve it, because in the market we pay for the same activities, but at home these biases exist. Also, now that even paid care work has become a part of the platform based economy or gig economy commonly known as, so even more care has to be taken care of women with regard to commutation and equal pay for equal work. Now, even this is a even this has problems because there have been cases where the salon services that we used to go to physically in physical buildings, but now even they are coming home, and women who are working late night shifts, they face harassment. And here it is also problematic because Maternity Benefit Act and POSH Act, these are applicable only to enterprises which have 10 or more employees. And according to the economic census 2015 and 16, it showed that average number of employees in any enterprise is 1.78. Now, in that case, employers will not hire women because they will lose out on profit if they keep on giving leaves for every single. This is what the employers say. And now here the states need to intervene to make Maternity Benefit Act and POSH Act implementable in all sectors of the economy, be it formal or informal. Now, the Lancet Public Health study highlights the impact of unpaid care work and labor on the mental health of caregivers. This is, I think, the first of the such studies which contextualizes mental health in the case of unpaid caregivers. This should be another reason to take into consideration the value of unpaid care work while framing policies. Now, what needs to be done? Care economy is a sector which has immense employment opportunities as well, because according to the data given by the Indian government, by 2050, of elderly persons is expected to increase to 20.8%, which is about 347 million persons. This highlights that not only do we need better care infrastructure, but also need to employ more people for the same. And here we can employ our youth also. This is done in European countries in America, where even the college graduates or who are pursuing graduation, they are employed at the daycare centers, which serves two purposes. Not only our youth is getting money for it, but the childcare burdens on parents is also reduced, and the gendered nature can be gradually washed over here. Economic survey depicts that direct public investment to 2% of GDP could create 11 million jobs, which could prove to be beneficial in easing the care burden on women. Now, we can learn here from South Korea also, wherein they provide direct insurances and subsidized care facilities not only to parents, children, but to elderly also. Argentina, USA, and Brazil have also been giving subsidies, tax rebates to the caregivers. Now, there is an urgent need for disaggregated data across intersectionalities of caste, gender, and region, which can be utilized for framing policies accordingly. Now, intersectionalities of caste also become important here because the government hospitals, especially those in rural areas, the the auxiliary nursing midwives or the ward boys that we employ in our hospitals, they belong mostly to the lower caste, so they face humiliation for their work. Now, this is another reason that state needs to be very compassionate, very empathetic while framing policies. Apart from this, the most crucial is the need for complete overhauling of the patriarchal and capitalistic systems and placing women and care at the center stage. Now, only government, if initiates or makes some policy, that alone cannot solve the
I
health.
can see you have 1 minute left, ma'am.
I'll just find out. So because markets equally interact with our daily life. So government, market, we as individuals, families, and civil society organizations need to pitch in to cater to the needs of care economy. The 5R framework by the International Labour Organization for decent care work, recognition, reduction, and redistribution of unpaid care, reward, and representation of care workers. These 5 principles can be kept in mind while framing policies so as to ensure that all the stakeholders are well taken care of, especially the caregivers. Training workshops, skill training, engaging the youth in these workshops, or day like facilities of babysitting or daycare centers, which can not only provide, I talked about this earlier, and monetary incentives can be given to parents or grandparents by the state for taking care of the care work. This has been introduced by Sweden this year only, I think last month, wherein if grandparents are taking care of the children, some amount of money by the parent's salary or by the state will be given to them also. These are some of the references that I have used. Yes, ma'am. This was about it.
Yeah. I think one correction, that Sexual Harassment at Workplace Prevention Act is not applicable only for those who have more than 10 workers, because there is a local complaints committee, LCC. So whether you are a vegetable vendor or working on the street or domestic worker without union, everybody can approach this. Only thing, the accessibility is a problem. It is a district level and women are not able to go. Even in city like Mumbai, we have this committee, LCC, since 2014, hardly 5-6 cases have been registered. That is another issue. But currently, there is a legal provision. Anybody, it encompasses everyone, including women in informal sector. So that correction you need to make. And you can show operationally it is not possible because women, for them, the accessibility is a problem.
Okay.
Yeah. It's going, and you have started like your interviews and all.
Okay. I haven't contacted anybody. It's just the literature review and secondary sources I referred to. It's more of a theoretical study because there are very debates within the laws and policies also. So that
But at
I
least
wanted
you
to
could,
address.
some of the judgments you can bring in, no? Of the Supreme Court, High Court and Supreme Court. But Prabha Kotishwaran has also done an extensive study of cases where a woman dies and the insurance company says they won't pay anything because she's a housewife. For men, they are ready to pay. So even several judges from Chennai High Court as well as Delhi Supreme Court also has given judgment taking cognizance of value of care work. Another thing is when man divorces his aging wife and they say they won't pay a pittance, no? As a maintenance because they are useless. Even in those cases, family courts have given judgment, computing the work which women have done over 30 years, 40 years, best years of their life. And they have asked the man to deposit lump sum amount in the court from the interest of which they would pay monthly maintenance to women. So some of these progressive steps have come out because of the debate. So you can just say that what have been the fallout of this whole debate on the paid and unpaid work, which has been there since late 70s. No, in fact, so many judges also attend the workshop where we economists also explain discuss the paid and unpaid committee and the methods of computing. And now we have our own Government of India's data through MOSPI.
Okay, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. Ma'am, one thing I wanted to ask, ma'am, actually Indira Hiravai ma'am has written one article of critiquing the time use survey. So should I add that argument, like there have been some conceptual and methodological issues with the TUS
because
also?
it's a recall method, no? Because in the previous 24 years, what all you did. So there is people may not remember everything, no? So that error is there, that error. But that is like, that can be corrected in the next surveys and all. But you can also see her article of time use of women in Delhi, the study which she anchored, no? for
Okay,
ISI.
okay.
There is article by the couple of articles by Indira Hiraway and Sudarshana from Indian Social Institute, published in
ISST.
EPW, Economic and
Okay.
Political Weekly, exhaustive study of the time use cycle.
Okay, ma'am. Ma'am, any other aspect that I should be addressing to or a dimension that I've missed?
That it's not a theoretical thing. There have been practical usage of this debate that you can bring out. First of all, the recognition and acknowledgement of unpaid work, which is very important, and so many countries have also accepted that they would write the opportunity cost, no, that women are losing out in by doing unpaid work. And other thing is accounting it in the national systems of account. The systems of national account, SNA, that has also been a demand. Monetary compensation is not, but it's notionally you accept that this is a valuable work. The moment you do that, your attitude of looking at women changes. For example, NIPFP, when they first time they did gender budgeting in 2005 for Ministry of Finance, in the very preface they have written that we accept that when women enter the labor market, they are already exhausted because they have already done unpaid care work. No, so that acknowledgement is very important for the state. The moment state sees women as a sponge or a burden on the economy or a freeloader, no, then the kind of policies you would devise that will also change, because as it is society thinks roti kamane wala gets all preferential treatment, the state will also start treating them like that. So it is important that you acknowledge.
Okay, ma'am. Okay, ma'am. Thank you so much, ma'am. Thank you.
Thank you, Nihalika ji. Yeah, Indira, would you like to add something?
Yeah.
No, I'm not adding because I have been in touch with Niharika. I have been conversing with her, and so we wanted your comments. Anyway, you have given good ideas. Good, thank you.
Okay, so thank you, Nihalika ji. We'll now move on to Prachi ji.
Yeah.
Hello and good evening, everyone.
Yeah.
Let me share my screen.
Yeah.
Is this visible?
Yes, it's visible, ma'am.
Hi, so I will be presenting on understanding urban women's health-seeking behavior for mental health on social media. So my research statement is mainly about understanding how women reach social media, how they utilize social media, specifically for their mental health needs. I aim to identify certain key factors such as trust, stigma, and misinformation. I also want to actually be, through this research, I want to be able to recommend some actionable guidelines for social media, particularly facing towards women mental health issues. So just to introduce the topic a bit of mental health, we all might know how important it is, but there are 970 million people who are living with mental disorders globally, and out of which 52% are women. And the suicide rate currently in India is around 14.4 per lakh, and this is only the cases that have actually been written or added as suicides, but this number is not complete. There are 1 in 40 people suffer from depression, and the treatment gap for mental health in India is 84%. That means 84% of people are not able to access services related to mental health. So with such a scenario, social media comes up as a potential solution because of its high reach and accessibility. And currently, to be kept in mind that we are only discussing urban women here. So the reach and accessibility for social media is higher in urban women, and hence it is a potential solution. So now talking about it, why is because of its high reach. So something like a TikTok platform, and I have numbers on TikTok only because because such a study was done on TikTok where it has 755 million active users and around 53.9 billion views are for mental health content. So we do see that there's a huge demand on social media, and a lot of people are trying to reach on social media to talk about mental health, and hence there is a requirement for a research also as such, where we can encourage people to seek help in social media. So given the current policy and program environment, currently the government has no focused policies for mental health on social media, but there is a guideline for NIMHANS which talks only about psychiatry, telepsychiatry, and not about all the other kind of major groups that are there on social media, like a community on mental health or influencers talking about mental health. Also, government has a telecounseling helpline called Telemanas, through which they provide support to people seeking mental health. Also, they have an app where they are trying to create a community for seeking mental health. So currently, this is the policy environment. The problem statement for this is, despite the increased mental health content, is it actually driving women to seek help? So the challenges here appear to be stigma, misinformation, and lack of trust in online mental health solutions. So my major research focus is to understand social media's effectiveness in help-seeking behavior. The objectives are to analyze, just give me a second. The objectives are to analyze how media shapes women's perceptions and attitudes towards mental health help seeking, identify social media features that drive the behavior change, evaluate the effectiveness of social media interventions in reducing barriers, and eventually to develop guidelines for designing effective mental health campaigns on social media.
Prachi, you have 1 minute left, ma'am.
Okay. So these were my research questions. If to understand if it does affect help-seeking behavior positively among women, and what barriers persist, and what are the existing social media solution optimized to improve with this transition. This is my methodology, and I have already conducted the survey and have received some responses of around 80 women living in urban areas, and these are some of my the findings. So you can see that most people use social media frequently. Also, the preferred mental health content on social media would be expert-led content. So people do not believe in what influencers say, essentially, because that has been clearly found out in the findings. Also, do people seek professional help? Are they influenced? They are somewhat influenced. There is no real clear focus of answer here. Then the barriers are mainly the cost of therapy. And I will go to my key findings due to, as we have some less time. The key barriers identified were 52% of women cited that cost of therapy was their main barrier. 37 people said that they lack trust in the mental health professional. 33% said that they prefer self-help over professional support. And 25% had fear of judgment from society. 22% were concerned about privacy and data security. So I shall be also conducting FGDs and some expert interviews, but the solutions that I will be presenting would be in the form of these major 5 pillars. Yeah, and my next steps would be qualitative analysis. That is it from my end. Thank you.
Are you going to critically reflect on Mental Health Act 2000?
Not for this particular thing, because the Mental Health Act does not talk about social media particularly. It does talk about rights of patients and various other important things, but nothing about digital or social media. The only thing that the MHCA mentions is about data privacy. So maybe I can one particular point from MHCA into this. But beyond that, it is not really speaking about anything else.
But it also talks about the community-oriented approach, no, as against the biomedical approach. So that is useful, no, because the community approach can be also digital, like the creating digital community, no, that is also very helpful. During the pandemic, we were dependent on digital communities only, no, that because of lockdown. So this is a new knowledge that community means not only meeting one-to-one in person, but you can meet on WhatsApp video, you can meet online, you can speak with each other on a long. So I think that aspect should be, you can extend the concept of community to the digital community. No?
Right, that's an interesting perspective. Actually, I did not. When we talk about community, I actually think about the community and not the digital community, but I shall definitely include it.
In fact, all the helplines, women's organizations throughout the pandemic were helping so many, thousands of women have been helped when they were facing, say, trafficking. Like 12,000 women were even rescued by the state when they were forced into marriage, or they were being sold by their parents, or when they were forced to driven to child marriages by their own relatives, and change happened. Their lives were changed. So I think now we will have to think about, we will have to take digital communities also. And they have created their own digital communities. No? All of them have their first thing we say, we'll create WhatsApp group. Even for this course, the very first session, say, let us create our own WhatsApp group. So which is a community. We all are holding each other's hands. We are sharing resources. We are providing useful tips. So I think you should take.
Yeah.
Thank you.
You're correct. And you can be a critic of this Mental Health Act and what can be included. With the
Right.
changing times, that could be an area to look at.
Definitely.
Yes.
I'll add both of those things to it. And thank you so much for your feedback and reflections.
Thank you, Prachi ji. And we'll now move to Diya Srivastava ji for her presentation.
Hello, am I audible?
Yes, ma'am, you're audible.
Okay. Yeah, I hope my screen is visible.
Yes. It's coming, but it is not.
Yes, I am still. Good evening, everyone. I'm here to present my topic on international security through gendered lens. And the question that my topic holds is, how has war changed the political fora of 21st century? A little about me. I am Diya Srivastav, have completed my political science honors from University of Delhi, and currently I'm working as an educator at Teach for India. And I wish to pursue research and development in social sciences in future. Contents for the day. So the first content is the questions that I'm asking in this research. Then what is the purpose, and case study with literature review and methodologies, and then at the end conclusion. So what questions are we really asking here? The questions are, how are people's sets set when it comes to women, and how does it impact the decision makers around the world? Why is the participation of women declining? How have people viewed this change in the political in the recent times of Bangladesh? And will there be more women leaders in future? How can we ensure women's representation? And what is the purpose? So, in the purpose of my research is to have a deeper understanding of women's role in ensuring and achieving global peace. Looking at the current geopolitical phenomena, we have observed how crucial it is for us to understand how wars shape life and often in a psychosocial setting of states being masculine, where women are often ignored and marginalized. And as we in the lecture by Miss Lingam, Dr. Lingam, we understood that how leadership is more masculine, and the emotional quotient is often ignored. Then, women in leadership. Around the world, women leaders are often critically examined, and we can see this trend in a lot of corporations and MNC. In 2024, only 28 women heads are there around the world, which comes back to the same question: are women really represented? Women are almost half of the population around the world and have equally contributed in nation building and building for the world peace. And next, let's take an example of Ghana. Ghana has 51.2% of women population, yet only 13.8% of members are there in the national parliament. Hence, in 2020, Ghana's government passed a policy of affirmative action, which was named as the National Action Plan, Ghana's second National Action Plan, and UN resolution of 1325 helped it to implement. Coming back to the analysis, so hence my literature will comprise more of the current secondary data and a comparative analysis of the transnational organization. We will be also looking at two case studies and analyze it. One is Bangladesh and the current political diaspora of Bangladesh, and then I would also like to add on with that the Trump administration's new take on DEI and how it is affecting the world, how it is affecting worldwide.
You have 1 minute left now.
Yes, I'm just winding up. So next, I will be looking at empirical inquiry in understanding the psychosocial aspect, the state being more masculine, and the question that we need to really ask is: can statism and security be looked at through a gendered lens? The last is Bangladesh story. As we know, Sheikh Hasina came into power in 1996 with Awami League getting a majority. In 2004, the country went on to announce 45% seat for women candidates. In 2008, Hasina is re-elected, passes policies on women's safety and addresses issues on women's safety. Then yet regained power with coercion in 2008. And the recent development that Yunus administration has taken the lead, claiming Hasina's government as authoritarian, and how I'm looking on this topic, how I'm looking at the secondary data that and the media houses, how media is portraying the whole story. At the end, I would like to conclude that women's role in security and policies in South Asia are often overlooked. In fact, worldwide, it's overlooked. There is a drop in the women leadership that shows that how women are often marginalized, and there have been, although there have been affirmative actions in certain countries, especially in South Asia, but we really have a long way to achieve that gender equality in leadership. Thank you. That's it.
Indira ma'am, would you like to
You
go
are
first?
taking, yeah, go.
And no, only you can comment on this topic. Vibhuti.
So I think one example from Global North, which is a example of President of USA, and one example of Global South that you are taking, so as a case study. But you need to provide the overall, the backlash that we are seeing all over. The masculinity, hyper masculinity in politics has now become a norm. So many progress. Even Jacinda Ardern had to resign with so much
Yeah.
of break. No, so I think overall political economy, overall geopolitics, plus the whole jingoism, or even Palestine, this thing, and Ukraine also, where sexual violence has been used as a major weapon. No, so I think all these are also you weave your this thing, no, about misogyny in public life, and this with overall hyper masculinity, cultural nationalism, sectarian, this thing, and more inward looking policy. There was a time where everyone was talking of liberalization and globalization. In the post pandemic period, all the nation states are now taking up more and more inward looking policies, no? Closing the barriers, trade barriers, and all. So I think if you locate your case studies in this geopolitical and macroeconomic reality, that will make it a very robust analysis. Yeah, very good.
Okay, so thank you, Diya ji. And now we'll move to Kasturi ji for her presentation.
Yeah.
Hope my screen is visible, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am, it's visible.
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So I had a little shift in the topic because my respondents, which were belonging to the Karzat group, they were not available during the time where I had to meet them. So I had to go for some virtual interviews. So I'll be presenting on the topic breaking barriers, gender stereotypes, bias, and leadership for young women. I am focusing on the main objective, that is to explore the lived experiences of women in leadership and their encounters with gender bias by employing a qualitative research approach, that is Zoya methodology. I am supporting the Zoya methodology with the triangulation method because I have used expert reviews along with the secondary data and the literature, which I'll be, focusing as we move ahead in the presentation. Yeah. So why Zoya methodology? Because it provides a structured rigor in inductive qualitative research. Because here my focus is, I'll be focusing more on theory generation and not theory verification. So I have used Zoya method. And it ensures credibility to systematic categorization of data. I'll be categorizing data into first order, second order, and aggregate dimensions. It helps capture participants' live experiences, and it supports quantitative depth in leadership bias studies. The method I've used is purposive sampling. 30 women leaders were interviewed. They belong to the field of education, retail, banking. I do take capability building programs for education, retail, and banking. So the sample was accessible to me. Why purposive? Because I took into consideration that they are at least in minimum of 5 years in the leadership positions so that they can share those experiences. They have experienced bias and they have the willingness to share the same. The data collection method I used was semi-structured interviews. Interviews went 60 minutes and beyond. And there were certain areas where we had to have multiple interviews. Observational field notes were also done because I do take capability programs with them. So offline meetings were also possible with them. And then company policies, leadership reports. They were also, in place. This is the detailed industry, number of women, leadership level and roles, which I studied, along with the work shifts, which is also essential to understand. Then now what I'll be doing is I'll be sharing in the upcoming 2 slides, I'll be virtually sharing the results. They will be divided into 3 areas. That is first order concepts, which are raw participant statements as it is. After that, those statements were clubbed into second order themes, which were certain patterns which we saw were common. And those are then clubbed into aggregate dimensions. So this is the virtual representation. So so these are just 4 statements. Likewise, there were many statements. So some of the prominent statements which came up was, I break my back working twice as hard as my male peers, yet I have to prove that I belong to the room. Then if I take charge, I am too aggressive. If I stay quiet, I am not a leadership material. So tell me exactly how do I win? So when we go in deep, so these are superficial statements, but when we went in depth, we understood that there were many subconscious elements coming into pictures. Like I'll just give one example and move ahead because we have a time constraint and presentations which are upcoming. Like men are encouraged to take risk to go for roles maybe they are not even capable or they are not even ready for. But when it comes to women, many of them said that we are told that you wait, you take more experience, you need more training, and then you move into those roles. Okay. Then another thing which a female shared was during the promotion interview, she was strictly asked about the family plans. And she said that it was like, I have my ambition has an expiration date, and that was very hurtful because she said I was more capable. And she mentioned that when promotion happened also, she was posted for certain night duties where no male colleague supported her. So we are in 2025 and still it is relevant, very relevant, whatever, throughout, even throughout these discussions. Today is the 10th session, and I could actually witness whatever we discussed throughout the sessions. When I took these interviews, I could actually witness that this is the reality because I belong to the education field, and in the corporate field, still this is a reality. Then these are the first order, raw statements divided into 5 second order themes. So those themes were proving worth in leadership was one of the theme which emerged. Second was bias in leadership communication and perception. Third was barriers to career growth and work-life balance. Then restricted access to leadership and influence, because many of those discussions happened after the working hours. Unequal pay and compensation practices, even after voicing it out multiple times. So then what I did was
Aditi,
I
you have 1
then
minute left, ma'am.
Yes. Then I went ahead and then I took it into 3 aggregate dimensions. Ma'am, I'm working more on this, and this is not the final, outcome. It will take 2 more years because I'm planning to develop a capability program, and also I'm planning to have longitudinal time series studies so that a mixed method comes into picture. So leadership bias and performance barrier was one of the aggregate dimension. Career advancement and structural barriers was second aggregate dimension. Paid compensation and workplace recognition as a female was the third aggregate dimension which came into existence. Like I mentioned about the rigor, I have maintained the rigor because triangulation, member checking, and reflexivity. Because me being a female, I didn't wanted my bias to come into picture. So I also requested certain male researchers to please pitch in and give me a inclusive perspective. And then intercoder reliability was also another method which I utilized. To conclude, the research which I'll be doing and I'll be taking this ahead, it will advance the leadership research literature. Then implications which are practical is, yes, we need to have a transparent performance evaluation system. We need to have equal access to sponsorship programs and leadership potential trainings and pay transparency. And conducting regularly whether the capabilities are matching with the pay irrespective of the gender, that needs to be seen. The final thought is gender bias in leadership is not just a woman's issue, it is a leadership issue. Because a leader is, like I said before also, a leader is building other potential leaders, so it requires a systematic change. These are the references which I read, some of the references. There are more references, and I tried to keep it 2020 and above, whatever references I have been through, and they are all Scopus Index and ABDC category journals which I have referred to. Thank you, ma'am. I'm open to your questions.
I was wondering, you did not get any response about the microaggression that they face in a day-to-day life? That is
Yes.
one. And what about the safety concerns? If they have to do overtime or if they are late, did they respond to about
Yes,
the
they did.
safety?
Yes, there was a safety concern. There was concern regarding, so ma'am, it was concerns regarding rudeness, incivility, those concerns, isolation concerns, and those concerns were not only coming from the male counterparts, but they also mentioned that even the female counterparts, like in the last session, ninth session, we talked about this. Sometimes even a female, when he or she reaches a particular level, she doesn't allow other females to move up the ladder. So those concerns were also
And even generational,
coming up.
intergenerational also, because I have heard a lot
Multi-generational
from
gap.
that young women without responsibility, they collude with men and they target the
Yes,
middle-aged women who have a care
absolutely,
responsibility. So they would
absolutely.
deliberately keep meeting at 7 o'clock while she has to go and pick up the baby, or she has to look after the elderly in her and relieve
Yes,
the care worker and do the cooking and
absolutely.
all. So I think
And
the young women versus old women,
old women.
middle-aged women, that is
Yes, and
also has been reported by the corporates in
yes,
a
I
big
mean,
way.
if you
Yeah.
permit, ma'am, recent incident, one of the lady, when she was sharing, she started crying actually in the session, in this discussion. She said that I came back from my maternity. I was doing my work as required. Everything was done because I was healthy. I had a good family support. Still, I was taunted. Still, I
Haunted,
was
correct.
made. Still, the meetings were kept after 6 because they knew that after 6 my baby needs me and needs feeding. So
Correct.
that was what she shared, and I had goosebumps. But I know I have seen these things happening around me also, and
I
I
think you
know.
should write all this, because now even HR people, they are inviting us. They say, why can't, because this also creates a warlike situation within the office, no?
Mm.
So that
Yes,
also,
ma'am.
and women with 20, 30 years of experience, their experience is quite useful for the company. They don't want them to leave, no? But if there is such kind of aggression in a day-to-day life, so many women give up, no? Because even many of them have become entrepreneurs or own account workers because of the
Yes.
hostility they faced from the
Or
colleagues in the
taking
office.
gap, ma'am, and going into depression cases also some of the females shared. Ma'am, one lighthouse was that one of the person, I cannot name the bank and all, but it is from the bank itself, a public sector. She is into HR and she said that I would take this ahead, and I told her, why not? You can be a catalyst to bring in a change in the policy. uh, uh,
Correct.
you are a change maker. If you have faced it, can you do it? Can you make the way easy for the other females? And she is taking it ahead. She's writing to the management. So that is why I said I'm going to take this ahead, and it is going to be
Yeah,
a
but even
longitudinal time series studies. But it should be with all. There are many hurdles, and so I can see that also. But I can see that there is a lighthouse also, ma'am. And
and
if
also some
required,
of the
ma'am, I can
management
approach
institute.
you. If required, your
Yeah, yeah.
advice, I can
Yeah.
approach.
Yeah.
Thank you, ma'am.
Another
Thanks a
thing
lot.
is that even courses have been started, no? Diploma and
Mm.
certificate course for women who want to re-enter this thing. Like I was there in a certificate distribution ceremony of SP Jain Institute of Management and Research. These were the women who took break when they were in the late 20s, early 30s, after the baby, after they became pregnant. And then by the time they are 45 or so, their children are grown up. They are like this thing, and they also miss a lot because they are highly qualified women, and they want to re-enter, but then the certain fears or loss of touch with the whatever progress has happened in that particular field was there. So SP Jain had started this course for those who wanted to re-enter
Understood, ma'am.
the world of work. No? So I think you may even find many other universities also must have done such thing, no?
Sure.
So
So
that
I
is
can
quite encouraging
redirect
to,
that females to these kind of courses also, which can build
no,
the
and also
confidence.
include
Yes.
it in your that mentoring. It is
Yes.
possible
Yes.
to
Yes, ma'am. Sure.
certain like new things which are happening can be acclimatized, no? Because
So
this
they
is the
can come
era
in
of
implications
lifelong
part.
learning. Yeah. So lifelong learning, anytime, anybody, anyone can understand.
Sure.
It's not a rocket science, no? So that is what they did.
Absolutely.
The hand-holding of these women were highly talented. And some, as you said, they were going through tremendous mental agony because they say, I was
Absolutely.
heading Nestle, I was heading this particular corporate, I was head of HR, I was highly appreciated. But after my pregnancy, I had to give up the job. Now, even my children, they have become independent. Now I want to re-enter. But
Get back.
what are the openings? No, yeah, get back. Yeah.
Yes. Sure.
Yeah.
Sure. Thank you. Thank you.
Very interesting study, and so
Very
it has a lot of implications. Yeah.
Sure, ma'am. And like I'll be coming back to you because I'm planning to even publish this in a good category journal, a B or A category. So I
Certainly.
have also highlighted which journals I want to. So, ma'am, I would be taking your advice. Thank you. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, Kasturi ji. And now we'll move on to the last presentation of the day by Maya ji. Ma'am, you can start your presentation.
Right.
Good evening.
Good evening.
I am Maya. My background is from sustainable energy transition. And today I'll be speaking about empowering women in India's energy transition, bridging the gender gap through policy and technology. My presentation will be covering the challenges and opportunities the women are facing in terms of energy access and energy transition, also the gender barriers in energy transition, and how the latest policies and digital innovations can help in bridging the gap between the gender disparities and energy transition. I'll be concluding my findings in the last part of my presentation. As an introduction, India is rapidly expanding its renewable energy capacity. In 2030, we are aiming to have a 500 gigawatt, which is a really commendable number. Achieving a just energy transition requires addressing gender disparities in the energy access in terms of workforce participation and benefits distribution. Women need not be only the customers for the energy transition. They should be coming into the forefront as decision makers and the key stakeholders of the complete energy transition process. But as of now, the energy poverty is faced by women, particularly in rural areas and in marginalized communities. The workforce related to the renewable energy sectors is only 11% in India. It is significantly lower than the global average of 32%, highlighting a substantial gender disparity. Limited decision-making power for women, and unequal access to the financial opportunities associated with. Apart from renewable energy, the conventional energy, which is basically depend on the coal in India, that is highly male-dominated process. The supply side, from the supply side, the complete energy generation, transmission, and distribution is the decision makers are mostly men. And now, when it is getting transition to the renewable energy sector also, the gender disparity is still there. So the policies should be gender sensitive to give all the opportunities equally for women also, and promoting them to play the key roles in the energy transition process. Coming to the energy access the women are facing. Traditionally, the cooking is done by using some biomass, some kind of biomass, which causes a lot of indoor air pollution and severe health risks to women. To make a change in this regard, Pradhan Mantri Ujjwal Yojana, this has improved access to the cooking gas, but the affordability and the cultural barriers still hinder the universal adoption. The Saubhagya scheme, it has increased the household electrification, enhancing the productivity, education, and the safety of women. But there are some challenges here also, which is intermittent power supply, unaffordable tariffs, and lack of gender-specific initiatives. Another initiative by Government of India is National Solar Mission and Renewable Energy, where women entrepreneurs are trained and they are encouraged to have financial benefits from decentralized solar system by installing and producing electricity and selling it to the major power grid and getting money from that. So this will be the extra money available to them will be empowering them financially. Apart from that, this extra energy available to them can mechanize the labor-intensive tasks like sewing and dairy farming. This improves the rural energy access as a total. Now coming to the supportive measures already taken for bringing more women participation in the energy transition process. There is a Solar Saheli initiative, which has been successfully trained rural women as solar entrepreneurs. This has fostered economic independence among the rural women. National Rural Livelihood Mission, this is encouraging self-help groups in renewable energy businesses to enter into renewable energy business like solar landed sales and microgrid management, energy management.
Mayaji, you have 1 minute left, ma'am.
This also improves the income generation and clean energy adoption. Mission Shakti has deployed solar-powered street lighting and rural electrification, and it again enhances the women's safety and mobility. With the aid of USAID, W Power has trained over 1,000 grassroots women as clean energy entrepreneurs who have in turn helped about 100,000 low-income households to move from the conventional energy sources to the transit energy, that is the renewable energy part, making them available more clean energy solutions. The gender barriers identified are women-led renewable energy businesses are depend on microloans as any other women-led businesses. So as usual, the limited financing options are available. Many a time grants are not available to them. Gender bias in the workforce. Already existing successfully running firms are are biased towards having men as their workers than female counterparts. Inadequate gender responsive training programs. The way in which the women want the training programs, that is not available. Technology alone cannot resolve all these gender inequalities. The political and legal support also should be there. So energy policies are gender neutral than gender responsive, creating policy blind spot. Many issues are not assumed to be there. Only if it is assumed there, it can be solved. But it has to be still given the title as a problem so that it can be addressed. Now, here comes the role of digital innovation. The accessibility, training, and participation can be improved by digital innovation. In case of energy, recently smart meters, Internet of Things, so many new words are coming up, new technologies are coming up, which will be making any common, any very ordinary person to monitor the household energy consumption and make decision on that. Digital financing can help securing funding for clean energy projects. Definitely the training programs can be supported by e-learning platforms so that access will be again improved. AI-powered policy analytics for gender impact studies for energy policies can give better suggestions to bring gender equality. The challenges associated with this one are the digital divide, again, between the different genders and different areas. Again, to access the digital technologies, there need some amount of money. So financial constraints also pose some challenges. And also most technologies are not designed
Mayaji,
considering the gender in mind.
Could you please conclude, ma'am?
Yes. The policy focus must be on digital inclusion, gender responsive training, and equitable participation. So the conclusion made from the study is that the gender disparities in energy access, workforce participation, and decision-making must be incorporated in the energy transition process. The policy should be focusing on, the strong policy intervention should be there, targeting financial support and digital innovation. The more gender responsive the policies are, more powerful are the, more promoted are the women entrepreneurship and the digital technologies. With the support of the latest technology, India can advance in sustainability as well as uplifting the lives of millions of women across the country. These are some major references I have used. Thank you for your listening. Open to the questions.
I think I missed your methodology, Maya. How are you going to conduct your study?
With this this line of these titles, I want to develop on each option, like how there should be some examples for the energy access, some specific examples for energy access, where digital technology has helped to improve the policy, the gap between the policy action gap, so that the women and other marginalized communities are supported. So similarly for the other renewable energy, the business and all options, this methodology should be followed.
I wanted to know that several states have come up with different energy policies, no? Like Lantern Didi scheme in Rajasthan, or it's a public-private partnership. So both the public-private sector also is there, like in so many areas where there is no electricity, they have come in. Then in certain states have supported the gobar gas plantation in the gobar gas plants, or the panchayat level initiatives have been taken for various types of, whether it's a solar energy or wind energy or this thing, no, local the battery run energy. So will you be making a comparative analysis of this thing, and how the centrally sponsored schemes is implemented at a subnational level?
Yes, I would like to include this under the renewable energy business, how that financial aspect has come into the picture.
So gender responsive budgeting, because even if that is there is a budgeting for energy, simple harvesting of energy, no? And training women, because this Lantern Didi scheme has been, women have been trained, rural women have been trained to repair the lanterns, which are operated by battery. No?
Yes.
Drones don't come under energy, because Haryana has come up with a drone energy, no? Which has become drone, because they say it has succeeded in Haryana, but it has not succeeded in UP or other states. So there have been regional variations in terms of response and the success rate of some of the intervention in energy sector.
Yes. I would try to include this regional variations also in the study.
The budget analysis, budget of the states and budget of union government. And has there been a proper utilization, or there is unused money? That also becomes, whenever there are new schemes are there, unutilized funds also becomes a hurdle, no? Because in the subsequent, the next year's budget, there'll be a reduction.
So thank you. Ma'am, are there any other remarks left? So thank you, Mayaji. And is there any other fellow left who would like to say something or ask? Okay, so I'd like to thank to all our fellows for their incredible efforts and thought-provoking presentations. It has been inspiring to witness your creativity, research, and commitment to driving positive change. And over the past few weeks, this program has not only been a platform for learning, but also space for collaboration, mentorship, and empowerment. With this, I would now like to invite Professor Vibhuti Patel and Professor M. Indraji to deliver the closing remarks for today's session. Over to you, ma'am.
Yeah, this has given me a great inspiration, the whole course about, because we try to take three important domains of world of work, politics and governance. All the resource persons, they really did an excellent job. The follow-up, like in terms of the question and answer sessions, were also full of energy. It electrified the whole atmosphere in the course, and we all got a lot of new ideas. The most important thing about this course, I find that all of you have come up with a totally innovative ideas for your dissertation, and so many unexplored areas in women's studies and the researches you have taken up, which is a direct implication for policies, legislations, and bringing some transformative change at a local level. So many small victories will be able to win because of applying this new knowledge. So I'm really very happy as a and I have learned a lot, because so you also have a very strong roots in your professional excellence as well as the experience. So I think that was, and plus collaboration with working with Professor Indira, who has done tremendous, who has put in a lot of effort in mentoring and also discussing with each and every fellow. I think this is truly a fellowship endeavor, and we have put our heart and soul and intellect and whatever knowledge resources we had into making this course a grand success. Thank you very much, Professor Indira.
Yeah, thank you so much. And I'm extremely happy to be with all of you every week, and week is just happening so quickly. Looking forward for Sunday and meeting all of you virtually, and it's a really, really learning experience. And all of you came up with, as Vibhuti said, with some new ideas and new thinking. How I am looking at it is because it is for fellowship you have taken up this project. There is every possibility of extending this project, and in your own career you can expand it, and you can seek funding from anywhere else, and continue your work, whatever. This is something like pre-testing kind of a thing. So you can continue with the same thinking and expand it and include many more dimensions. So that is the kind of possibility I'm looking at it. As such, these studies also contribute, but there is a possibility for expanding it much more and talk about the country or talk about a specific state or interstate comparisons. There is every possibility. You are all youngsters and you have your careers, and you can look into this. And thanks, Vibhuti. Thanks, IMPRI, for giving me this opportunity. This is my first time, and I have learned a lot. And maybe I must not have been very professional in facing the camera and in responding, but I will try to be more professional in facing the camera.
Your intellectual contribution, academic contribution, the sincerity with which you gave your time and shared your knowledge resources, very important, extremely. One can see it being reflected in today's presentation very much.
You are my inspiration, I tell you. And I have learned
we both
a lot.
inspire each other. It's mutual.
And,
it's mutual.
You are really nice in the sense, even though I'm not a match to you intellectually, but you encourage and you give that kind of encouragement. Thanks, Vibhuti, and thanks, IMPRI, and all the entire IMPRI team. You all work together, and also to all the fellowship holders, scholars. You guys have done really good job, and I look forward for more presentations. And thank you so much.
Thank you. Yeah. And thank you, Riyaji, for also anchoring the program so well.
Yes.
And we would like to know about the future of remaining presentations from Ms. Priyanka Negi, if she can enlighten us about the session plan and the time slot that we need to book for all the remaining participants. Yeah.
Ma'am, regarding
Hello.
Yes, ma'am.
Oh.
Ma'am, regarding
Yeah.
the time slots, I think we can discuss it with you. I think I would firstly like to ask the participants on the WhatsApp group or via email how many have prepared the presentations, and I think we'll have to come to a common date for that, and we'll discuss. If it is feasible, then only we'll go ahead with it. If it is not feasible,
Otherwise, they can send the videos or the write-up, and we will respond to their write-up, final manuscript. Yeah,
I think a more feasible option would be for them to finally submit their draft essay, which is due on March 16th. We'll consider that the final form of submission so that it can be reviewed timely. Then we'll give 2 weeks time to the chairs to review the drafts accordingly. So March 16th will be the date for that. And if any other time slot we come across, we'll discuss with both the chairs. And if it is feasible, we'll go ahead. If it is not feasible, then the written research essay draft will be the final submission by the participants.
Right. Yeah, because we have another course also, no? Gender-based violence.
Yes,
yeah, okay. Yes. Correct.
Thank you.
And environment is also coming. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
So I now
Bye-bye.
Professor Vibhuti Patel ji and Professor Indira ji for their profound closing remarks, which encapsulated the essence of our discussions and reinforced the importance of sustained efforts toward gender equality in public policy and governance. So this concludes the day 11 of Young Women Leaders in Public Policy Fellowship Cohort 2.0. And as we come to the end of day 11 and the final day of Young Women Leaders in Public Policy Fellowship Cohort 2.0, an online national winter school program, a 4-month online immersive introductory leadership certificate training fellowship program, Idea Rawat, researcher at IMPRI, Impact and Policy Research Institute, would like to propose the formal vote of thanks on behalf of IMPRI, Gender Impact Study Center, New Delhi. And we would like to extend our heartfelt gratitude to Professor Vibhuti Patel ji, Professor M. Indira ji, and Professor Lakshmi Lingam ji for their invaluable contributions today. And their insights and expertise have greatly enriched our discussions, providing us with profound perspectives on gender equality and public policy. A special thanks to all the esteemed experts who have joined us throughout this fellowship, sharing their knowledge, experiences, and perspectives. Your guidance has been instrumental in shaping this program into a meaningful and impactful journey for all the fellows. And a special thanks and grateful to Vibhuti ma'am and Indira ma'am for their invaluable guidance and support throughout the sessions. Regarding
Can I just 1 minute, I just wanted to tell all the fellowship holders, I just wanted to tell whatever the topic that you have selected for your work, link it to policy, relevant policy. I think that is very, very important. All of you, whatever may be the policy, whatever may be the topic, relate it to the relevant policy and be critic of that policy and suggest some policy changes.
Or based on your grounded research.
Yes. Okay. Thank you.
We also thank all our participants who have raised pertinent questions and actively participated in all the deliberations. Readings for the session will be shared in your email, and a video of the session will also be shared with you for learning. We eagerly look forward to the upcoming milestones in the fellowship. That is, on March 16, there will be research essay draft submission. On March 38th, there will be research essay, expert and editorial review. And on April 6th, there will be the final research essay submission. We encourage all the fellows to actively engage in these sessions as they mark the culmination of their research efforts and contribute to their learning journey. Additionally, do fill up the feedback form to ensure that IMPRI continues to organize future events which cater to your academic interests and pursuits. We are grateful if you are watching us later on YouTube, listening to us on our various podcasts, or reading our publications. We hope you continue to join IMPRI's Web Policy Talk and Web Policy Learning programs. We thank you all for being a part of this enriching experience. Wish you a very good evening. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Good evening. Thank you.
Thank you.